Chapter 664 Snow Falls on Earth. The battle between the two generals was about to begin, and this news was quickly notified to all combatants by the Combat Command Center and the 40 Things Field Satoru. After Fengguangdiwen Run heard the news, Zhang Yi couldn't help but look at the center of Jiangning Square. He narrowed his eyes, as if he had already felt two powerful forces slowly rising there. In fact, they were two forces that were no less powerful than his. An idea suddenly popped up in Zhang Yi's mind. Should I take advantage of this moment to go and support Deng Shintong? But the moment this idea came into being, he gave it up himself. He didn't know Deng Shintong's ability, nor did he know Eclipse Moon's trump card. If the abilities could not be well coordinated or even restrained, 1 + 1 might be less than 2. Moreover, he couldn't guarantee that Eclipse Moon had no other backup. The headquarters had already made a perfect plan to create good combat conditions for the Heavenly God team for these aliens from the outer city. I believe Deng Shintong is capable of dealing with the situation there. Zhang Yi curled his lips and said calmly, even if the worst situation occurs, it is still within my acceptable range. Before, the headquarters used our outer city aliens as bait to force Eclipse Moon to reveal his strength. Then this time, I will use the people of the Heavenly God Squad as bait to test Eclipse Moon's trump card. He no longer cared about the battle in the center of Jiangning Square, but quickly rushed to the northern front a few kilometers away according to the order of the headquarters. Fights were going on in all the battlefields. With the end of the Heavenly God Squad, the battle officially entered a white-hot stage. On the western front, Bai Chunyu, Li Taichang, and Luo Tianxiang were fighting against Dagongkai Yanjin, Sakuraba Yezagwang, and Kurosawa Akira. Seeing that the deputy captain of the Heavenly God Squad had left, Sakuraba Yezagwang and Kurosawa Akira could no longer watch the show. The two stood up and walked silently behind Dagongkai Yanjin, but kept a distance of more than 10 body lengths from him. It seems that even his teammates don't like to get too close to this monster. When Dagonghui Yanjin was fighting, he couldn't tell friend from foe because his power was too strong, and he couldn't control it well. The number of his companions who had been killed before was almost double digits. Bai Chunyu put away the smile on his face, and his expression was frighteningly cold. Let's get started. Quick battle. We don't have much time to delay here. As soon as he finished speaking, the whole person suddenly became illusory, and then very abruptly, his body began to disintegrate. Not disintegrate, but turned into countless white snowflakes. Snow is falling on the earth. As Bai Chunyu changed, the temperature of the surrounding air seemed to drop a few degrees, completely annihilating the residual heat left after the bombing. Even the snow in the air became more and more dense, covering the entire battlefield. Disappeared. Dagonghui Yanjin narrowed his eyes and stared at the surroundings carefully. No, he is around. Suddenly, there were more and more snowflakes in the air, and the 6-pointed snowflakes were dense enough to block people's vision. Suddenly, from 3 directions, a large group of blizzards attacked Dagonghui Yanjin. Dagonghui Yanjin clenched the dragonfly cutter in his hand and slashed it horizontally towards his body. But this kind of attack has no effect on the millions of snowflakes. The next moment, the blizzard came in front of him and directly submerged him. Swish. Swish, 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 swish. Millions of snowflakes were flying, and the sound they made was strange, like a flying knife cutting through an object. The originally soft and white snowflakes turned into extremely sharp blades at this time, and countless 6-sided flying knives began to cut Dagonghui Yanjin's body mercilessly. Small wounds appeared all over his body, and blood flowed out. That feeling was no different from being cut into pieces. Even a body as strong as steel and iron could not withstand such intensive attacks. Dagonghui Yanjin showed a painful look on his face. Get out of the way. He waved the dragonfly in his hand frantically, but no matter how powerful he was or how sharp his weapon was, he couldn't break thousands of snowflakes. Roar. Dagong Yanjin roared, and a powerful aura burst out from his body. He broke the flying snow all over the sky. However, in the space around him, there were more and more snowflakes, and even formed a huge sky above his head. Bai Chunyu's incarnation of snow drifting in the world was specially used to restrain people like him who only had brute force. Dagong Yanjin heard Bai Chunyu's cold voice echoing around. No matter how powerful you are, can you break the snowflakes? Dagong Yanjin was about to say something, but suddenly, a hole appeared in the snow wall in front of him. Li Taichong, wearing heavy armor and holding a huge anchor, rushed over like a humanoid titan, aimed the anchor in his hand at his head and smashed it down. Bang! Dagong hurriedly used the dragonfly. Xie blocked it, and the collision between the dragonfly Xie and the anchor made a deafening sound. The collision between the two top-level enhanced aliens directly shattered the ground under their feet. A solemn look appeared in Li Taichong's eyes. He used Bai Chunyu's Snow Piao Renjian to cover up and actually launched a surprise attack, but was blocked by the opponent with one hand. Dagonghui Yanjin showed his white fangs and laughed wildly at Li Taichong's eyes exposed from the armor. Not bad. It's really interesting. Arrogant. Li Taichong held the anchor with one hand to attack and held a long chain with the other hand. At one end of the chain, there was a meteor hammer the size of a human head. He raised the meteor hammer high above his head and smashed it towards Dagonghui Yanjin. Bai Chunyu's offensive did not decrease at all and continued to attack Dagonghui Yanjin's body with countless flying snow. Even the strongest body of steel could not withstand the thousands of cuts of his sharp snowflakes every second. However, Daikokai Yanjin was not fighting alone. Seeing this, Sakuraba Yeshiguang and Kurosawa Akira behind him immediately started to support. Sakuraba Yeshiguang held his right wrist with his left hand and pointed his right hand with 5 fingers open at Daikokai Yanjin. An invisible shockwave was released instantly. Bai Chunyu was about to continue his offensive, but suddenly found that his body sank and his movements became slower. Li Taichong also felt that his hands and feet became heavier. Is this gravity? They immediately understood what the other party's ability was. Eclipse Group Number 13, Sakuraba Yeshiguang. Ability Code Name, Gravity Field. It can enhance gravity indiscriminately within a fixed area. This ability has a great impact on Bai Chunyu. Because his Snow Piao Renjian is the incarnation of thousands of drifting snow, the impact of gravity is relatively large. But for the powerful Great Works Yanjin, this level of gravity field is of no use at all. Chapter 6, 65 Snow Mountain, Lightning Falcon. Sakuraba Yoshiko's gravity field greatly relieved the pressure on Daikokai no Bujin. This was not the first time that the two of them had cooperated. Daikokai no Bujin could adapt to the doubling of gravity, but Bai Chunyu and Li Taichong were a little uncomfortable. Daikokai no Bujin grinned. Of course, he would not miss this opportunity. He waved the dragonfly cutter in his hand and chopped it down at Li Taichong's forehead. As a yokozuna, he did not know how to use any weapons. His fighting style was very simple, that is, brute force. One force breaks all methods. Li Taichong stared at this, quickly chose to retreat in distance, and then swung the more than 10-meter-long chain in his hand towards Daikokai no Bujin. The meteor hammer at the end pointed directly at his chest. Blunt weapon attacks do not need to be aimed at the vital point specifically. As long as they hit the body and cause damage, the opponent can quickly lose combat effectiveness. Although Dagonghui Yanjin was conceited, he had experienced Li Taichong's strength and did not dare to take it lightly. It was just that he could use a dragonfly cut to deflect the attack from this distance with one hand. Li Taichong was wearing heavy armor, but his movement speed was not slow at all. He fought at a distance to adapt to the action under the gravity field. Soon, he mastered the method of attacking under this gravity state and began to skillfully fight with Dagonghui Yanjin. He was once a first-class martial arts performance artist in China and a master of meteor hammer. After obtaining superpowers, he made up for his physical defects and truly became a powerful alien. In terms of skills, I am first class. In terms of strength, I am also first class. Li Taichong said so. So when he met the sturdy and bear-like yokozuna in front of him, he had no fear at all. He believed in himself and his team. Bai Chunyu's offensive was affected, and the gravity field was a bit fatal to his ability. Shuepiao Renjian encountered a gravity field, so it was difficult for him to fly. He said to Luo Tianxiang, "Help me kill the guy who manipulates gravity first." Luo Tianxiang replied, "Got it." He kicked the ground with his legs lightly, and the whole person soared into the sky. In the air, he grew a pair of huge white wings, and his body turned into a huge bird. Luo Tianxiang, an orc-type ability user, a rare animal species, Snow Mountain Thunder Falcon. Luo Tianxiang quickly flew hundreds of meters high. Even at such a long distance, he could see everything on the ground clearly. This came from his ability, Eagle Eyes, which can dynamically capture everything moving on the ground. He locked onto the position of Sakuraba Yezagwang, opened his mouth and spit out a white lightning, which fell like a sword. The speed of lightning was too fast, but this time, Luo Tianxiang's transformation was in front of several people. So they had been prepared for a long time. At the moment when the lightning fell, Sakuraba Yezagwang's body strangely jumped back and actually retreated dozens of meters away. His body was light and fluttering, as if it had no mass. In addition to being able to release the gravity field, it can also be applied to the body, making him walk on a planet that is only half the weight of the moon. So his speed and strength can be greatly improved. Luo Tianxiang let out a loud cry, and his claws condensed lightning, and lightning after lightning continuously struck the ground. The three people of Eclipse Moon are all within his attack range. And he soared in the sky, overlooking the earth like a king. At this distance, almost no one can attack him. This is his favorite kite game. But at this moment, Kurosawa Akira stretched out his hand to throw off his black leather jacket, revealing the huge black hand cannon on his right arm. Hunting time is here. Kurosawa Akira raised his hand cannon and aimed at Luo Tianxiang in the air. He pulled the trigger without hesitation, and a yellow light shot up into the sky, turning into a bright beam of light, and instantly came in front of Luo Tianxiang. Swish! Luo Tianxiang turned around and dodged Kurosawa Akira's attack in the air. As the king of the sky, his speed is also extremely fast, and this bulky hand cannon attack can't hit him. When Bai Chunyu saw this, he was about to transform into Piaoxue to help, but suddenly heard a cry for help from behind. "Deputy Captain, come and help me." In just a dozen seconds, the battle between Dagongkai Yanjin and Li Taichong had been fought hundreds of times. Dagongkai Yanjin's attack method is extremely simple and crude. He just rushed to Li Taichong and forced Li Taichong to compete with him in strength. The heavy and sharp dragonfly cutter kept smashing in his hand. It was obviously a sharp weapon, but he used it as a blunt weapon. After all, for Dagongkai Yanjin, he was not good at using weapons. He chose the dragonfly cutter only because he admired the legendary warrior Honda Tadakatsu in Japan. But when fighting, he still felt that this thing was more convenient to use as a stick. Li Taichong was also angry, holding the anchor in both hands, and chose to fight with Dagongkai Yanjin. But after the fight, he found something wrong. In terms of strength, he was no match for Okokai Yanjin. The 3-meter-tall Tide Tiger form after the transformation made Okokai Yanjin, who was a Yokozuna, almost invincible in the field of strength. Ping ping pong. The dragonfly cut fiercely on the anchor. After just a few dozen collisions, Li Taichong felt that his hands were almost numb and the spine on his back was cold. After 100 rounds, his legs finally became unstable, and he fell to the ground with a thump. However, Okokai Yanjin had no intention of stopping. Looking at the guy in front of him who was wearing heavy armor and struggling to support himself, the violent emotion in his heart arose spontaneously. He wanted to smash the coward hiding in the armor into a meat paste alive. Finally, Li Taichong's arms could not support it. Even though he was wearing the armor tailored for him by Deng's industry, the gap in strength between the two sides was still too big. Dagonghui Yanjin's right hand shook, and the anchor in his hand flew out of his hand. Bai Chunyu saw that Li Taichong was no match for Dagonghui Yanjin, and he was not surprised. After all, the other party was the second-in-command of the Eclipse Moon organization, and he did not expect Li Taichong to defeat him. The reason why he brought Li Taichong here was to be able to hold him back from the front. Although Li Taichong made a cry for help, his body moved along the ground very quickly, and the thick iron chain in his hand was thrown at Dagonghui Yanjin's legs, trying to restrain him. Seeing this, Bai Chunyu said to Luo Tianxiang through the communication device, "You hold the two guys behind. I will help Li Taichang kill the big guy first." "Okay, leave them to me." Luo Tianxiang looked down at the ground from hundreds of meters high, and dozens of lightning bolts spewed out from his huge claws, shooting at Kurosawa Akira and Sakuraba Yezagwang. The two were forced to retreat step by step. Their methods were very disadvantageous to Luo Tianxiang. Luo Tianxiang soared above the sky at an extremely fast speed, and even Kurosawa Akira's hand cannons could not aim and shoot at him. Chapter 660, Sixth Way of Power. Li Taichang was defeated by Dagonghui Yanjin head-on, and could only use his skills to delay time, and then shouted to Bai Chunyu for help. Seeing this, Bai Chunyu had to turn back and cooperate with him to attack Dagonghui Yanjin. The sky was full of ice and snowstorms, covering the sky and the earth, covering a large area of space. At this time, Bai Chunyu had transformed into millions of people, and even if he broke some snowflakes, it would not affect him much. On the contrary, Dagonghui Yanjin, due to the transformation characteristics of the orc system, could not wear armor, resulting in his skin being exposed. Being attacked by Bai Chunyu for a long time is like being cut by a blunt knife, and he will be consumed to death sooner or later. But this time, Dagonghui Yanjin was not panicked by Bai Chunyu's attack. Many people mistakenly believe that they, who are full of flesh and weigh hundreds of kilograms, are idiots with only limbs and lack of brains. Dagonghui Yanjin has always sneered at this idea. How can a warrior who fights with his body win the battle if he does not have enough wisdom to deal with his opponent? If he were that kind of simple stuff, he would not be able to survive until now after the end of the world. You still want to use the same trick against me, it's ridiculous. Dagong Yanjin smiled, revealing a mouthful of cold white teeth. Then, in the continuous invasion of the blizzard, he did not dodge the millions of snowflakes flying knives, but raised the more than 3-meter-long dragonfly cutter with both hands. He danced the dragonfly cutter with both hands at an extremely fast speed. Soon the dragonfly cutter began to rotate like a windmill, and then a huge whirlwind formed around his body. Bai Chunyu turned into thousands of snowflakes and was dragged by the whirlwind, and he actually lost the ability to move. This guy, Bai Chunyu was shocked. He did not expect that this big guy would think of a way to deal with his ability so quickly. But at this time, if he released his transformed form, he would definitely be strangled by Dagongxiang Yanjin at close range. "Don't try to trap me in this way," Bai Chunyu shouted, and the snowstorm began to disperse into the distance. But Dagongxiang Yanjin's movements became faster and faster, and a hurricane visible to the naked eye formed with him as the center. The strong wind pressure formed an absolute pressure gap, and Bai Chunyu, who was trying to escape, was gathered around him. No matter how Bai Chunyu's incarnation wanted to escape, he was ruthlessly pulled back. Damn it! Bai Chunyu finally began to panic. But before Li Taichang could catch his breath to help him out, the surrounding snow was all condensed together by the whirlwind artificially created by Dagongxiang Yanjin. Bai Chunyu turned into a large mass of solid icicles around Dagongxiang Yanjin and was squeezed together by the wind pressure. Dagonghui Yanjin jumped high, and then with a slap, he pressed the huge whirlwind-shaped ice pillar into the depths of the earth. Then he stomped his right foot hard. The earth shook violently, and the soil and rocks collapsed. Bai Chunyu was temporarily sealed under the earth. Although this would not kill Bai Chunyu for a while, Bai Chunyu had no way to escape. Seeing this scene, Luo Tianxiang and Li Taichang were a little panicked. Bai Chunyu was the main force among the three of them. Now that Bai Chunyu was sealed, the combat effectiveness of the two of them was obviously greatly reduced. Especially for a terrible beast man like Dagonghui Yanjin, their attack methods would be difficult to work. "No, we must rescue Deputy Captain Bai. Otherwise, Li Taichang will not be able to stop that monster sumo wrestler." Luo Tianxiang had to change his attack target. He quickly turned in the air and then rushed to the direction of Dagonghui Yanjin, spewing sharp lightning from his mouth and claws, aiming at Dagonghui Yanjin's torso. The speed of Dagonghui Yanjin is not his strong point, and he cannot avoid this kind of lightning attack. Lightning bolts fell directly from the air on him, and the electric light was lingering. Crackles. But the lightning bolts wandered around him without causing much damage. Dagonghui, Yanjin laughed coldly. This level of attack can't hurt me. Luo Tianxiang's ability is lightning, but this is just the bioelectricity transformed by his ability, not real lightning. Otherwise, with the power contained in the 100,000-volt lightning, even Dagonghui Yanjin would not dare to take it head-on. Luo Tianxiang's pupils shrank suddenly, and he had a bad feeling in his heart. There was even an urge to escape. They underestimated the goal of this operation. The strength of these Neon Ronin who came across the sea is not weaker than their Tianxin team. Luo Tianxiang gritted his teeth. He knew that he had no other choice at the moment. This battle was watched by the top leaders of the headquarters. He must not escape. With this in mind, a larger ball of lightning began to condense in his mouth. He wanted to deliver a fatal blow, at least to force Dagong Yanjin to leave the land, to create a chance for Bai Chunyu to escape. However, just as he was gathering strength, Dagong Yanjin suddenly made a strange gesture. He raised the dragonfly cutter in his right hand, leaned down slightly, and his slender and agile body was pulled open like a big bow. Oh no! Luo Tianxiang immediately realized what the guy was going to do. I have to dodge. He flapped his wings and tried to fly, but the dragonfly cutter came straight through the space. The speed of the great worker Yanjin was not fast, but he had the top physical strength. With the blessing of this power, the dragonfly cutter directly sent out a piercing sonic boom in the air, a blow several times the speed of sound. Luo Tianxiang did not dodge this blow, and his body was directly penetrated in the air. The huge dragonfly cutter even penetrated his body and continued to fly towards the sky for a distance with scarlet blood. Luo Tianxiang felt that at this moment, all the strength in his body was drained. Looking down, a huge hole appeared between his chest and abdomen, which was transparent from front to back. Then he fell straight down from a height of hundreds of meters with his head down. Old Luo's. Li Taichong's eyes were bloodshot. He was extremely angry and terrified. Bai Chunyu was sealed. Luo Tianxiang was pierced through the torso, and his life or death was unknown. Now he was alone. How could he compete with the three people in front of him? Even wearing the armor tailored for him by the Deng group, he couldn't help but feel afraid of the upcoming battle. Reality didn't leave him time to think. Even though he had lost his dragonfly cut, the great worker Yanjin looked at him with a sneer, but rushed over like lightning. Ah! Li Taichong roared, dragged the chain, picked up the huge anchor, and then rushed up. Chapter 667 Liao Honglei vs Jinguji Seiichiro. Dagonghui Yanjin suppressed Bai Chunyu with one move and shot through Luo Tianxiang. In a short moment, he killed two of the three major forces of the Tianxin team. Such a scene was observed clearly here at the Combat Command Center. Zhu Zheng's teeth were crunching. It's not that the Tianxin team can't lose, but it was so fast and completely crushed that he couldn't accept it. Not only him, even Tu Yunlai and others didn't expect such a result. Obviously, they have used the best personnel allocation method. On the battlefield, only Li Taichong was still struggling to support. But without the help of two teammates, he couldn't support himself. Dagonghui Yanjin looked down at him from a high position, and his excited eyes were like a beast that had encountered prey. It has been too long since he encountered this level of strengthening alien. If it were the previous enemies, they would all be easily crushed into meatballs. By him. Only Li Taichong could fight him in close combat and hold out for a while. Come on, boy. Let me see how long you can hold out. Li Taichong's forehead was covered with cold sweat, but at this moment, he had no choice but to fight to the death. He clenched his teeth and touched a switch in his glove with his right hand. Immediately, a short needle tube appeared from the armor device on his arm and pierced his skin directly. Blizzard City's biotechnology drug, Compound No. 2, can allow him to burst out with great power in a short period of time. However, this drug is still in the experimental stage and has great side effects. The reason why it is allocated to the investigation team is to allow them to use it in desperate situations. Even if he survives the current crisis, he is likely to die in a short time. However, he can no longer care about many things. Compound number 2 quickly enters his blood and flows through his blood vessels. A strong burning feeling rises from Li Taichung's body. He feels like he is about to explode. That kind of powerful force is almost burning him to death, and he urgently needs to find a place to release this power. De Gonghui Yanjin saw his change, and the smile on his mouth became more excited. Don't let anyone come over. I want to fight him one-on-one. Li Taichung's eyes were red, and he roared and rushed towards De Gonghui Yanjin. Ah! On the battlefield, blood and flesh flew everywhere. The shocking explosions and the sound of weapons colliding resounded through the sky. Only 3 minutes later, the place returned to peace again. Gu Feiyu's head was held in the hands of Sakuraba Yezagwang. Bai Chunyi's life and death were unknown, and Li Taichung had completely disappeared. Only his strangely shaped heavy armor and blood flowers all over the ground were left. Using compound number 2, he constantly broke through his limits, and in this high-intensity battle, his limbs quickly disintegrated. The northern front was completely defeated at this time. De Gonghui Yanjin's eyes were a little disappointed. Is it over? What a pity. I haven't felt so happy for a long time. The heavy gunner Kurosawa Akira behind him said lightly, the outcome of the battle has been predetermined, isn't it? Miss Takeuchi's divination has never been wrong. At the combat command center, Zhu Zheng's face was terribly gloomy. His voice changed a little. How could this happen? All defeated. All defeated. Lan Xinqing saw Zhu Zheng's look and hurried forward to comfort him. After all, the opponent is also the top combat force of Eclipse Moon. Now we have confirmed that Eclipse Moon's strength is no less than the investigation team. As long as we can win in other battlefields, especially Deng Shintong can behead successfully, we are still the winners. Zhu Zheng raised his head, and the gloom in his eyes was as scary as ink. He said nothing, his eyes fixed on the other fronts. On the northern front, the situation has reversed. Deputy Captain Liao Honglei came alone. There are 2 deputy captains of the Tianqian team, one is Bai Chunyu, and the other is Liao Honglei. However, although the 2 have the same level, the difference in responsibilities is quite large. Most of the time, Bai Chunyu is a military strategist and logistics manager. Liao Honglei, on the other hand, is a pure fighter. At the expense of Yu Xingyang, Zhuo Feiyu, and others, he gained insight into the abilities of Kamaya Negemichi and Akutsu Shinichiro. The sudden surprise attack destroyed the 2 without any preparation. Just as Liao Honglei was about to kill 2 members of the Eclipse, a huge flaming Akainu emerged from the thick fog and pounced on him. The second-in-command of the Eclipse group, Onmyoji Jinguji Seiichiro, joined the battle. He was accompanied by 5 Shikigami. Golden Giant Ape Kanemaru, Silver Six-Tailed Fox Jinmaru, Blue Bird Aoki, Red Three-Headed Dog Akamaru, Gray Crow Huiki. Liao Honglei saw Jinguji Seiichiro appear on the battlefield, and his face showed a proud fighting spirit. Neon Myoji? Interesting. You stole the left-handed door from China, and now you use it against me. Do you really think you can win? Jinguji. Seiichiro naturally understood Liao Honglei's ridicule through the translation function of the headset. He sneered. I remember there is an old saying in your country. The disciple does not have to be inferior to the teacher, and the teacher does not have to be better than the disciple. It seems that you have forgotten this saying. He stared at Liao Honglei and said word by word, we have realized something better. Liao Honglei suddenly moved while he was talking. His figure was as fast as lightning, lowered his body, and rushed towards Jinguji Seiichiro. But Jinguji Seiichiro just waved his right hand, and the golden pill beside him blocked him in front of him, blocking Liao Honglei's way. At the same time, the 3-headed demon dog Akamaru was also burning with hellfire and attacked Liao Honglei from another direction. Liao Honglei calmly observed everything around him. The 3-headed dog and the giant ape seem to be melee-type Shikigami, but there are foxes, blue birds, and gray crows beside him. That gray crow has been found in everyone in Eclipse Moon, but I haven't seen it show combat capabilities, so it should be a support type. Liao Honglei basically made a judgment in his mind. He reacted very quickly and punched Jinwan in front of him. The power of the 100-step divine fist sent out shockwaves through the air, and the next moment, it came to Jinwan's body. Pop! Inside Jinwan's huge body, an invisible wave slowly appeared, directly tearing a huge hole in its abdomen. But immediately, a golden light appeared from Jinwan's wound, repairing Jinwan intact. Jinwan roared and rushed to Liao Honglei, raised his fists high, and smashed down on his head, like a mountain pressing down on his head. Chapter 668. The Core of the Spell. Liao Honglei dodged the attack of Jinwan with a nimble figure, but the ground where he just stood with a loud boom. The earth broke into pieces. Its power is so huge that it makes people dumbfounded. It is definitely at the level of a Delta-level enhanced alien. Liao Honglei has realized at this moment that Jinwan is not a living being, otherwise, within 100 steps, almost no creature can take his punch without any injury. The only explanation is that it is something condensed by supernatural power. Yin-yang jutsu, Shikigami, right? Liao Honglei's expression became solemn. This is the first time he has faced such an opponent. The worst thing is that he doesn't know how to destroy it. However, Jinguji Seiichiro's Shikigami will not give him time to think. Akamaru roared and rushed over, and the three huge heads spewed magma, directly melting the ground around Liao Honglei. Liao Honglei glanced at Jinguji Seiichiro in the distance. He had a plan in mind. Since he didn't know how to quickly deal with the Shikigami, wouldn't it be better to just kill the Yin-yang master? But this thing is easier said than done. Not only were Jinwan and Akamaru besieging him, but Jinguji Seiichiro also had Qingwan and Jinwan watching him covetously. But just when Liao Honglei was struggling, a reminder from the Combat Command Center sounded in his headset. Liao Honglei, the Yin-yang art Shikigami, needs to be condensed with talismans as the core. As long as you can destroy the talismans, you can kill the Shikigami. Liao Honglei was reminded by the Combat Command Center, but he was not happy in his heart. Because the giant beasts in front of him were so big, and the Yin-yang master's talismans were only the size of a palm. How could he find the so-called core and destroy it? At this point, I can only try. Liao Honglei gritted his teeth, stood firmly in his horse stance, and aimed his right fist at Jinwan's head and slammed it hard. The power of the 100-step divine fist passed through space and directly reached its head. Jinwan's head twisted instantly, but it didn't explode. Jinwan is the representative of strength among the 5 great Shikigami of Jinguji Seiichiro. Its strength and defense attributes are the strongest. In a short while, Jinwan's head was restored to its original state. It howled, as if it was angry this time, and the speed of chasing Liao Honglei increased by more than a section. The talisman is not in its head. Seeing this scene, Jinguji Seiichiro showed a contemptuous smile at the corner of his mouth. Some people really watch too much anime and subconsciously think that the vital point will be in the heart or head. But they know this, and Jinguji Seiichiro certainly knows it. The 2 giant beasts, Jinwan and Akamaru, surrounded Liao Honglei. One took a violent bombardment, and the other blocked his action with surging magma. But Liao Honglei was not in a hurry, and moved around with his agile body, and the 2 Shikigami had no way to deal with him. Even if we put aside his supernatural powers, Liao Honglei is also a master of Bajiquan, with a lot of horizontal training skills. In addition, he has a battle suit and weapons made by Deng's technology, which makes him extremely capable in close combat. If he is defeated by 2 mere Shikigami, he is not worthy of sitting in the position of deputy captain of the God Squad. Liao Honglei dodged the joint attack of Jinwan and Akamaru. He reached out and took a black grenade from his waist, pulled the ring with his right thumb, and then threw it at the 2 Shikigami. A spherical black light exploded, covering the 2 Shikigami. Jinguji Seiichiro couldn't help but look sideways. Because ordinary hot weapons have little effect on Shikigami. This grenade is obviously a product for aliens. But soon, Jinwan and Akamaru emerged from the explosion intact and continued to chase Liao Honglei. The two violent Shikigami ran on the ground like crazy, with red eyes full of murderous thoughts towards Liao Honglei. Shikigami have no ability to think. Once they receive a certain instruction, they will continue to execute it. And the order they received at this moment was to kill the man in front of them. Jinguji Seiichiro saw that Kanemaru and Akamaru could not deal with Liao Honglei at all. He waved his right hand, and the huge six-tailed white fox next to him took a few steps forward. It raised its head, and its slender white neck stretched straight to the sky. Then the pink fox mouth opened. A sphere surrounded by hazy white light began to condense on its head, and slowly became the size of a human head. The next moment, the huge ball of light turned into a dazzling white light and shot towards Liao Honglei. Its speed was so fast that it was difficult to capture with the naked eye. Liao Honglei himself was attacked by Kanemaru and Akamaru, and at the same time he had to face the curse attack of Jinru, so it was inevitable that he was a little embarrassed. But fortunately, from the beginning, he did not ignore the movement here. The moment Jinru's attack came, his fist also blasted past. Go! The 100-step divine fist collided with a spell in the air, and the two huge energies caused terrible vibrations. At the same time, Jinwan and Akamaru had surrounded Liao Honglei on the left and right. Liao Honglei was not panicked at this time. His eyes were fixed on Jinguji Seiichiro, who was controlling the Shikigami in the distance. This time, facing the siege of the Shikigami, he did not escape, but chose to take the initiative to attack. No matter how powerful the Shikigami is, it is just a manipulator without wisdom. As long as you are familiar with their abilities and attack methods, you can find a strategy to deal with it. Liao Honglei first avoided the three-headed demon dog with flames all over its body. Then he took the initiative to face Jinwan, who represented power. Roars! Jinwan was surrounded by the golden light of yin-yang magic, which made it fierce and powerful. Liao Honglei was calm and attacked it face to face. The two fists crossed in the air, but did not collide with each other. Jinwan's fist fell into the air and was flexibly dodged by Liao Honglei. The next moment, Liao Honglei actually got into the gap between Jinwan's huge body and hugged its waist with both hands. The penetrating force of the 100-step divine fist hit Jinwan's body fiercely. In close combat, his 100-step divine fist was even more powerful and could directly penetrate all defenses and shatter the internal organs. Jinwan's body was immediately twisted and broken by this blow. Then Liao Honglei began to exert his strength, leaning back, and unexpectedly knocked the giant golden ape over 3 meters tall upside down. Boom! With a back throw, Jinwan was planted into the ground like a tree stump. Liao Honglei quickly stood up, aimed at the middle of Jinwan's legs, and punched down fiercely. A miserable wail seemed to come from deep in the earth. Then, the golden light on Jinwan's body quickly dissipated, and a broken talisman fell to the ground. Liao Honglei did not expect that Jinwan's talisman was hidden in such a position. However, this was also related to the success of his tactics. If you don't know where the talisman is hidden, wouldn't it be better to find it? Chapter 669. You are already dead. Liao Honglei quickly killed Jinwan and killed one of the 5 Shikigami beside Jinguji. This development made everyone in the combat command center excited. The combat effectiveness of the Onmyoji comes from Shikigami and spells. As long as all the Shikigami are solved, Jinguji Seiichiro will become a lamb to be slaughtered and be wiped out at will by Liao Honglei. Liao Honglei smiled and stared at Jinguji Seiichiro in the distance. The murderous intent in his eyes was released without concealment. But Jinguji Seiichiro just pushed his gold-rimmed glasses expressionlessly. Then, he casually took out another talisman folded into the shape of a monkey from his pocket. Go! Jinguji Seiichiro silently chanted the spell, and then threw the talisman into the air. The golden light enveloped the talisman, and then quickly generated an identical Jinwan. Seeing this scene, Liao Honglei's pupils suddenly shrank. Even the smiles at the combat command center stopped abruptly. After killing one Shikigami, the opponent summoned another one so easily? Tu Yunlai said to Liao Honglei, "It's not that simple. The talisman is the core of the Shikigami, and destroying the talisman can indeed kill the Shikigami. However, if the opponent prepares enough talismans, it is impossible to kill all the Shikigami at once. But his energy consumption is real. As long as you continue to kill his Shikigami, he will soon be unable to maintain this energy consumption. After all, maintaining the operation of 5 Shikigami at one time consumes a lot of energy. Liao Honglei nodded. Of course I understand this. But this consumption is not a good thing for me. His expression was a little solemn, because he is a melee type of alien. And Jinguji Seiichiro is an onmyoji who is good at alien arts. Every profession has its own specialty. Liao Honglei mainly uses his expertise in close combat. So, in terms of the total amount of energy, it is definitely not as good as Jinguji Seiichiro. In this kind of war of attrition, he would most likely not be able to defeat the opponent. But if killing the Shikigami doesn't work, then the only way to win is to kill the onmyoji himself. Liao Honglei figured this out. He knew that he couldn't continue to waste time on the Shikigami. Liao Honglei quickly took out a large pistol with his left hand, aimed it at Jinguji Seiichiro, who was hundreds of meters away, raised his gun and shot. As a strong man from the military, he was still accurate with his left hand. Black origin bullets were fired from the muzzle one after another. If Jinguji Seiichiro represents the art, then the origin bullet is just his nemesis. Jinguji Seiichiro frowned, and the blue bird guarding him flapped its wings fiercely, and suddenly a huge gust of wind rolled up in front of him, circling around Jinguji Seiichiro like a tornado. Although the origin bullet can break the magic, such a huge gust of wind still deviated the trajectory of the bullet. Jinguji Seiichiro's eyes revealed a bit of caution. Someone had told him about the origin bullets in the Jiangnan region. If you are careless about this thing, you may be killed directly. Even if he is a Delta-level alien, it won't work. Keep attacking, kill him for me. Jinguji Seiichiro raised his right hand, raised his index and middle fingers, and began to stimulate the power of the Shikigami. The 5-colored light around the Shikigami became more dazzling, and Jinwan and Akamaru rushed towards Liao Honglei again. Liao Honglei had a cold face and tried to use the origin bullets to attack the 2 Shikigami. It did work, but it couldn't destroy their cores. At most, it consumed the energy on them. This approach could not achieve effective results at all. What's more, there was Jinwan staring at him, and an energy cannon suddenly blasted over. If he continued to fight like this, Liao Honglei could only be in a passive state. As long as there was a slight flaw, he had no doubt that these terrible Shikigami would tear him to pieces. Even in such a situation, Liao Honglei was still able to remain calm. He has carried out missions on the brink of life and death countless times. The strong wolf forged in the army allows him to remain calm in the face of adversity. Liao Honglei remained calm and continued to fight with several Shikigami. But in his heart, he began to calculate the distance between himself and Jinguji Seiichiro. It's about 350 meters away. At this distance, it will take me 3 seconds to kill him at close range. But first, I have to get rid of these 2 Shikigami. Secondly, there is a Shikigami who controls the wind beside him, which is very troublesome. Liao Honglei quickly came up with a battle plan in his mind. Hualala. He put away the pistol, and at the same time, he waved his left hand, and more than a dozen bombs were scattered all over the battlefield with his movements. Jinguji Seiichiro's eyes condensed, and the blue bird quickly lifted up. Strong winds prevented these explosives from approaching, but the bombs took effect the moment they landed. However, contrary to Jinguji Seiichiro's expectations, they did not produce a series of explosions, but burst into dazzling white light, so bright that he almost cried. It was a high-intensity flash bomb. The entire battlefield was bright, and because it was too bright, nothing could be seen. Jinguji Seiichiro could not see Liao Honglei's position. But at this time, Liao Honglei was wearing tactical eyepieces. This latest technology developed by Deng's technology can see objects in the dark and avoid losing vision in a strong light environment. The effect created by this high-intensity flash bomb is to make Jinguji Seiichiro temporarily unable to move, let alone capture his position. So the moment the flash bomb lit up, Liao Honglei moved. His legs swelled up and his speed increased to the extreme. It only took him 3 seconds to get to Jinguji Seiichiro. Facing an onmyoji, Liao Honglei approached his body. Even without using supernatural powers, he could beat him into a pulp with just a pair of fists. Jinguji Seiichiro sensed the crisis, and he understood what Liao Honglei wanted to do. Asshole. He cursed, then turned around and wanted to escape to the depths of Jiangning Square. But how can an onmyoji compete with a strengthening alien in terms of speed? The next moment, Liao Honglei appeared in front of him, with a cruel smile on his face. "You are dead,"
Liao Honglei said.
But at this moment, the fear on Jinguji Seichiro's face disappeared. He looked at Liao Honglei, and the smile on his mouth was full of weirdness. And the corners of his mouth became bigger and even pulled behind his ears. Liao Honglei felt a chill on his back, and he immediately realized that he had been tricked. But now, he had no time to escape, because Jinguji Seichiro had already grasped his arm tightly. Chapter 670, The Yellow Bird Behind. Liao Honglei used a trick and came close to Jinguji Seichiro. He thought he had succeeded and was about to smash Jinguji Seichiro's head with a punch. But Jinguji Seichiro in front of him suddenly became weird. He grabbed Liao Honglei's arm, and his body began to crack. In a short moment, he had lost his human form. His body was full of cracks, but a heart-pounding white light emanated from the cracks. Explode. Such a voice suddenly came from a distance. The white light around Jinguji Seichiro suddenly became blazing. The violent explosion boomed, resounded throughout the battlefield. Even other fronts could hear it clearly. Due to the light, the Combat Command Center did not know what happened. But the powerful energy reaction here still attracted everyone's attention. Everyone looked at the area with white light nervously. After more than 10 seconds, they slowly regained their sight there. But the scene in front of them made Zhu Zheng's pupils shrink, and he almost couldn't help the impulse to run down from the command platform. Because they saw Liao Honglei's body was broken, and he fell to the ground covered in blood. His most solid combat uniform was already broken. However, at the original place, the figure of Jinguji Seichiro disappeared completely. Roar! Jinwan and Akamaru roared and rushed over, lying on the seriously injured and dying Liao Honglei, biting bloodily and cruelly. The horrible scene made the staff of the Combat Command Center look distorted. A female staff member couldn't stand the scene, covering her face and crying. Although they were used to seeing life and death, they had also experienced such cruel scenes. But the person bitten to death by the Shikigami was the deputy captain of the God Squad. They couldn't accept that such an existence would die in such a tragic way. In the thick fog, Jinguji Seichiro silently lit a cigarette for himself. He said faintly, "Who told you that the onmyoji would be so careless as to appear in the middle of the battlefield?" The person who appeared in Liao Honglei's field of vision before was not Jinguji Seichiro himself. It was a puppet he made with a lot of explosives and spells. From the beginning, that was a trap he set for Liao Honglei. Otherwise, if he only relied on those Shikigami, Jinguji Seichiro knew that they would have little hope of killing the vice-captain of the God Squad. Thanks to that person's information, he sighed softly. Otherwise, if he faced a strong man like Liao Honglei head-on, he would really have a high probability of dying. At the Combat Command Center, it was silent at this time, and everyone dared not even breathe. They carefully and secretly looked at Zhu Zheng's expression, only to feel that there seemed to be a thick black cloud covering it. Both fronts were defeated, and 2 vice-captain-level figures of the God Squad died in battle. Such a tragic situation has been rare since the establishment of the Jiangnan district until now. Especially the investigation team that carried out the mission this time was the God team, which ranked first in the scoreboard and had a 100% mission completion rate. Zhu Zheng had no expression, but his eyes were surging. If he wasn't in front of so many subordinates, he would have been furious. Tu Yunlai said in a deep voice, "Now, we can only see the results of Deng Shintong's battle. As long as he can win, we will be the winners of this battle. However, if Deng Shintong loses, the consequences will definitely be unbearable for the Jiangnan region. Because in that case, it will not only mark the complete failure of this operation, It will also allow this incident to ferment in the outside world, causing the prestige of the Jiangnan region to be seriously frustrated. Zhu Zheng's guard Sun Lushuan pushed his glasses. He looked at the images in the surveillance and had a doubt in his heart. However, he glanced at Zhu Zheng and then at several high-level figures in Blizzard City present. From Tu Yunlai to Lan Xinqing and then to Bailey Chongqing. When his eyes fell on Bailey Chongqing, Sun Lushuan's eyes stayed a little longer, and then he retracted them. Some things are not appropriate to say now. After all, this battle has not been completely over. However, the Tianxin team lost on several fronts, with a strange smell. They have given up hope on the fronts in other places, and only hope that Deng Xintong can perform a gorgeous decapitation operation. But at this time, Zhang Yi, who has not paid much attention by them, has already arrived near the western front. Jinguji Seiichiro slowly walked out of the fog. Kamiya Negemichi and Akutsu Shinichiro have almost lost their combat effectiveness. Their internal organs have been torn into pieces by Liao Honglei. If it weren't for their strong physical bodies and stronger vitality than ordinary people, they would have died on the spot. Jinguji Seiichiro came over, took out the healing medicine from his body, and injected each of them with a shot. It's really embarrassing. Jinguji Seiichiro sighed. Kamiya Naikato's mouth was still bleeding, and he frowned unhappily. Are you mocking us? That's not the case. Jinguji Seiichiro shook his head. I was just thinking, if it weren't for that person's help, it would be too difficult for us to fight against the Jiangnan district with our own strength. Tisk. Shinichiro Akutsu said disdainfully. No matter how powerful they are, they still lost to us, didn't they? Seiichiro Jinguji glanced at him. Don't forget, the foundation of the Jiangnan district is not just the God team. If we meet other investigation teams next time, it may not be so smooth. Shinichiro Akutsu chuckled. But now, we have won a great victory, haven't we? He looked up and said with emotion, sure enough, Miss Takeuchi's divination was right. I am Xiaoji's fortune today. Even if I get hurt, I can still live well. Before he finished speaking, Kamiya Naikawamichi on the side suddenly shouted, Be careful. Seiichiro Jinguji's eyes tightened, but he summoned the Shikigami to protect himself immediately. Akutsu also felt that a danger was approaching, but at this time his body was even difficult to move. Even if he sensed the danger, he was completely unable to avoid the attack. Puff! A silver bullet shot into his forehead and then went out from the back of his head. Eclipse Group, Shinichiro Akutsu, defeated. Seeing Shinichiro Akutsu dead, Kamiya Negemichi shouted, There is an ambush. He rolled to the ground while shouting. But this method could not save his life. Even if he lowered his head, the holy silver bullet representing death still penetrated his head and shot directly into his cranial cavity from the top of his head. This is the ability of the space system, precision shooting. For Zhang Yi now, even if he closes his eyes to shoot, the bullet will not deviate by half. What's more, his target is only two seriously injured Eclipse members. Chapter 671. Scared Away. When Zhang Yi rushed to the western front, Liao Honglei had already been killed by Jinguji Seiichiro. But Zhang Yi keenly discovered that there were two seriously injured and dying Eclipse Moon members on the battlefield. Of course, he would not miss this good opportunity and decisively shot to make up for it. Jinguji Seiichiro's ability could not intercept his bullets, so he could only watch Zhang Yi kill his two teammates. However, after confirming the death of Akutsu and Kamiya Negemichi, Jinguji did not hesitate at all and decisively chose to retreat into the thick fog with the protection of the Shikigami. After a while, Zhang Yi, who was fully armed and launched the Two Realms Destruction, slowly walked over. He held two white owls in his hands, and his eyes swept across the entire battlefield sharply. Although it was shrouded in thick fog, as a space-based alien, he was very sensitive to air fluctuations. Now, as long as there are living creatures within 500 meters, even the sound of breathing can be sensed by him. Soon, he noticed the people hiding in the thick fog, as well as other existences. A golden giant ape and a three-headed hellhound with flames all over their bodies rushed out of the thick fog, attacking Zhang Yi from the left and right. Zhang Yi calmly paid attention to the movements around him and spread his hands to the left and right. Seeing that Zhang Yi did not dodge, the two huge shikigami rushed towards him. Jinwan raised his fist as big as a casserole and roared and punched it down. Akamaru swallowed scarlet magma in his mouth, and the three huge heads made a creepy dog-barking sound. Puff! A large mouthful of magma sprayed towards Zhang Yi's head. But the magma did not approach Zhang Yi, but disappeared directly in the air and was collected by Zhang Yi in the different space. Jinwan's fist came directly to Zhang Yi. Its power was too strong. After the fist hit it, the whole body was directly brought into the different space without leaving a ripple. Although Akamaru was slower, he only lagged behind for a moment, and his huge body was also collected by Zhang Yi into the alien space. Oh, to be precise, they ran in by themselves. Deep in the thick fog, Jinguji Seiichiro was so scared that cold sweat ran down his forehead. Although he didn't know who Zhang Yi was and what his ability was, he sent out two great shikigami, but they were collected effortlessly by the other party. Obviously, the other party's ability was restraining him. After collecting Jinwan and Akamaru, Zhang Yi looked at Jinguji Seiichiro. The distance between the two sides was about 400 meters.
Just right.
In his right eye, a distorted white light began to slowly emerge, and the terrifying power of space quickly gathered. At this moment, Jinguji Seiichiro felt the crisis of death. As a stock trader, he was extremely cautious by nature. So at this time, Jinguji Seiichiro turned around without hesitation and ran directly into the distance. Zhang Yi was stunned for a moment, and he didn't expect that the other party would be so steady. It takes about 1 second for the release of Shunwei. In this frontal release process, if the opponent is prepared, it is indeed not easy to hit. Zhang Yi's eyes suddenly looked in the direction where Jinguji Seiichiro fled. He felt an unusual fluctuation. There must be someone in that direction. However, the fog was too deep, and he knew too little about the intelligence of the battlefield. If he chased rashly, he might fall into the encirclement of Eclipse Moon. He didn't want to face several high-level combat forces of Eclipse Moon at the same time. After thinking for a while, Zhang Yi did not go deep into the thick fog to pursue, but planned to collect the spoils first. After confirming that there was no one around, he hurried over and collected the bodies of the two Eclipse Moon members. After the head was destroyed, their origin would quickly dissipate, but there would be no such problem if they were placed in the different space. Zhang Yi carefully collected their bodies, but his eyes looked at the direction where Jinguji Seiichiro left with some doubts. He didn't understand why Jinguji Seiichiro didn't choose to continue fighting with him after he made a move, but chose to escape? No, it could also be a retreat. Is it because of something else? Zhang Yi frowned slightly. It can't be, because he knows my strength, right? This is even more impossible. Even in the Jiangnan region, few people understand Zhang Yi's true strength. Jinguji Seiichiro has the ability to kill the deputy captain of the Tianqian team alone, so how could he be afraid of him and retreat? Zhang Yi didn't know that the other party was as cautious as him and could even be called a pessimist. Upon discovering that Zhang Yi's ability might restrain him, Jinguji Seiichiro left his companion's body and ran away without hesitation. At the combat command center, the battle situation here was also reported to Zhu Zheng, Tu Yunlai, and others were stunned. They never thought that in the end, it was not the Tianqian team that made the contribution, but the alien Zhang Yi from the outer city. Only Bailey Chongqing sighed in his heart, not at all surprised by this result. It can even be said that if it weren't for Zhang Yi being too steady, if he was a more radical alien, the battle scene would be even more dazzling. Zhu Zheng murmured, I didn't expect that Zhang Yi would have such a strong strength. If I had known this earlier, I should have reassigned the tasks. Lan Xinqing said, he just killed Kamaya Negemichi and Akutsu Shinichiro. Tu Yunlai glanced at him faintly after hearing this. But he scared Jinguji away. And he killed a couple who killed Eclipse Moon before, but he relied entirely on his own strength. I even think that this guy's strength can compete with the deputy captain-level figures. Lan Xinqing's tone stagnated, and then he said coldly, If he is really powerful, why has he been hiding? If he had gone to support other fronts earlier, maybe the current situation would be completely different. He looked at Zhu Zheng. Zhu Shuai, I still think that this person's heart is not completely loyal to Blizzard City. As soon as the sentence came out, it was exchanged for Bailey Chongqing's sneer. Puff. This sound was too harsh in the combat command center. Lan Xinqing looked at Bailey Chongqing angrily. Bailey Chongqing, what are you laughing at? Bailey Chongqing spread his hands and said, Nothing. I just think that we can't use the standards of Blizzard City to demand the aliens from the outer city, right? And among the aliens from the outer city this time, Zhang Yi is the best performer. Lan Xinqing really couldn't refute this. He could only say, having the ability to help comrades but deliberately retaining strength, this kind of thing is absolutely impossible for the elites of my Blizzard City to do. Okay. Zhu Zheng stopped Lan Xinqing's unreasonable trouble. At this time, he was not in the mood to listen to Lan Xinqing and Bailey Chongqing bickering here. The current problem is what he cares about most. Lan Xinqing quickly shut up and stopped talking about this matter. But soon he thought of another way. Now that we know that Zhang Yi has some strength, why not let him continue to fight with Eclipse Moon? In this way, he can also help other members of the God team on the field. Although he said so, the battle on the field was not going smoothly. Moreover, Deng Shintong had already reached the base camp of the Eclipse Moon group and fought with the leader of the Eclipse Moon group, Feng Huang Yuanren. That battle was the decisive factor in this operation. Zhu Zheng looked at Zhang Yi in the picture, thought for a moment, and said, Zhang Yi, your mission has been completed. Now withdraw. Lan Xinqing was shocked when he heard this. Zhu Shuai. Zhu Zheng ignored Lan Xinqing's words and just silently ended the communication with Zhang Yi. Too many people have been killed in this battle. And the next battle is the competition between Deng Shintong and Feng Huang Yuanren. Chapter 672, 4 kills. When it comes to the battle of Deng Shintong's level, ordinary aliens will only be defeated even if they join in. And now Zhang Yi has completed the task very well. No, it should be said that he has completed the task far beyond Zhu Zheng's expectations. Zhu Zheng hopes to keep this good seedling. If possible, let him join Blizzard City, and he may be a captain-level combat force in the future. Zhang Yi was a little surprised by Zhu Zheng's order. He originally thought that Zhu Zheng would let him continue to rush to the battlefield to provide assistance. Zhang Yi would not refuse such a thing. After all, with his strength, it is completely easy to clean up the mess, and he can also pick up heads and get points rewards. Even if he encounters an enemy that he can't deal with, it's still no problem to escape. But Zhu Zheng said so. Obviously, he has enough confidence in Deng Shintong and others. Zhang Yi is not a person who likes to show off, so he calmly observed the surroundings and slowly evacuated the battlefield. Zhang Yi left Jiangning Square with a glorious record of killing 4 members of Eclipse Moon. Soon after he came out, a medical soldier came to greet him. Zhang Yi just smiled at them faintly. I'm fine. Seeing this, several medical soldiers were surprised and looked at Zhang Yi with respect. Because in this operation, more than half of the aliens in the outer city were killed or injured, and almost no one was intact. And Zhang Yi was the last person to walk out of the battlefield. Although they didn't know what happened on the battlefield, this was enough to make them feel in awe of Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi went all the way back to the armed helicopter. Seeing that it had been changed into a temporary intensive care unit, the surviving aliens in the outer city, except Liang Yu and Peng Li, were basically seriously injured. Yuan Hao was lying on the stretcher. His weak face was pale, and he seemed to be dying. And his girlfriend Xia Lingling stood beside the stretcher with lifeless eyes, saying nothing, like a dead person. Zhang Yi saw the terrible wounds on her body and the flesh that looked like a living person. He finally understood why Xia Lingling was not counted when the number of aliens in the outer city was counted. Mo Zhongning, Li Weihai, and others were not at ease either. The battle just now was a heavy blow to them, not only physically but also psychologically. They were essentially the same as the Eclipse organization. They were all scattered soldiers who did not belong to any official organization. However, when they fought, the gap in strength was like a natural moat. If it weren't for the timely entry of the God Squad, all of them would have died. Therefore, everyone cast strange and envious eyes at Zhang Yi, who returned safely. Zhang Yi ignored them and walked straight to Liang Yu and sat down. Chen Xiaoxiao had almost recovered after Peng Li's treatment, and the medical team gave her medicine. Although she could not fight in the short term, her life was not in danger. She looked at Zhang Yi with a bit of awe in her eyes. She saw with her own eyes that Zhang Yi killed 2 eclipses in seconds. Zhang Yi, have you completed the mission? Chen Xiaoxiao asked cautiously. Zhang Yi thought about it. Zhu Zheng's order to him was to support the northern front. But when he arrived, Liao Honglei had been killed. But he also killed Kamaya Negemichi and Akutsu Shinichiro. Overall, he did not fail in his mission. So Zhang Yi nodded. I guess so. As soon as this was said, all the aliens from the outer city present were shocked. Even the medical staff on the side couldn't help but look sideways. Mo Zhongning looked at Zhang Yi in astonishment. You don't tell us that you killed the members of Eclipse Moon. He lowered his head and murmured, those guys are as strong as monsters. Li Weihai shook his head. That's impossible. Only the people of the God Squad can fight against them. As for us aliens from the outer city, we are just cannon fodder. Zhang Yi didn't want to pay attention to a few people. But hearing their desperate tone, he couldn't help but sneer. Are the people from Eclipse very strong? I don't think so. Is it possible that you are too weak? After these words came out, several people who were already scared by Eclipse became angry. Mo Zhongning said angrily, Zhang Yi, did you really meet the people from Eclipse? Do you know how strong they are? Li Weihai also shook his head. I heard that there were no members of Eclipse on your side. This may have given you an undue illusion. As for your so-called completion of supporting the Northern Front, I guess you just went there to provide assistance and shoot cold guns. Zhang Yi sighed and leaned back in the chair in the helicopter. He said in a gentle tone, maybe it's really like what you said. I had an illusion and happened to meet 4 weak. I really killed 2 small Eclipse members, and then took their lives. That's all. This sentence suddenly changed the atmosphere in the helicopter. Even Yuan Hao, who was lying weakly on the hospital bed, sat up and looked at Zhang Yi with disbelief. What did you say? You really killed the members of Eclipse, and 4 of them? Chen Xiaoxiao and Peng Li also stared at Zhang Yi in astonishment. He killed 2 more members of Eclipse? Doesn't it mean that Zhang Yi single-handedly destroyed 1/3 of Eclipse? This kind of record can only be described as terrible. You must be kidding? Haha. The smile on Mo Zhongning's face was a little stiff, although he knew that it was meaningless for Zhang Yi to lie about such things. But the actual experience made him unable to believe that Zhang Yi could kill 4 powerful members of Eclipse Moon. Even if he only killed 1, it was incredible. Obviously, they were all strangers from the outer city, and they were all leaders of a faction, so their strength level should be similar. Why can you be so awesome? Zhang Yi was too lazy to explain. He sat on the chair and looked through the window at the center of Jiangning Square. Now, all he needed to do was wait. Waiting for the result of the battle between Deng Shintong and the leader of Eclipse Moon. Combat instructions at the battle center, everyone's eyes were fixed on that place. Deng Shintong was now their last hope. But even though the battle situation on the field was not ideal, Zhu Zheng felt more at ease than anyone else. Because he believed in Deng Shintong's strength. Behind Deng Shintong stood the armed forces of Blizzard City and the decades of technological strength of the Deng Group. Right in the center of Jiangning Square, the king met the king, and the clash of 2 captain-level aliens finally began. At the same time, the Eclipse Group, the combat center, and the aliens in the outer city all felt the terrifying breath that made the air solidify, erupting from the center of Jiangning Square. Chapter 673. Praise of Light. While other battle lines were still in a stalemate, the battle between Deng Shintong and Fengguangyuanren had already begun. Everyone knew that this battle was the decisive factor in the outcome of the battle. Shishimanobu Satoru hurriedly took Takeuchi Mayumi away from the battlefield. This level of battle was not something they were qualified to approach. Next, it could only be left to Fengguangyuanren to deal with. After the 2 teammates left, Feng Wangyuanren smiled and stared at Deng Shintong, revealing two fierce eyes under his newsboy cap. As long as I can kill you here, I think the old men in Jiangnan district should be completely awakened. Deng Shintong smiled and waved at him. You can try. Feng Wangyuanren put away the smile on his face. From the depths of his eyebrows, a bright red mark quickly emerged and then extended along both sides of his cheeks, slowly forming bright red and dazzling stripes on his face. It was a colorful red, deep red, bright, and there were mottled flashes of the starry sky. It was as if a stream of red galaxies was running in his skin. The bloody streaks gradually spread to his neck, the back of his hands, and finally covered his entire body. A breathtakingly powerful aura emerged around him. He didn't look tall and strong, but now with just a pair of clenched fists, he gave people a feeling that he could blast the sky. Leader of the Erosion Moon, Feng Wangyuanren. A special ability user. Ability code Phoenix. Feng Wangyuanren's body was surrounded by red blood, and the temperature of the surrounding space rose rapidly, and large pieces of ice and snow began to melt. He didn't rush to attack, but looked at his opponent Deng Shintong not far away. Come on, let me see your strength. Deng Shintong smiled and nodded gently. Okay. The moment his voice fell, his arms spread out to both sides like angel wings. Then, an extremely holy and magnificent light burst out in all directions with him as the center. The color in Feng Wangyuanren's pupils suddenly disappeared. Even his dark pupils turned white at this time. He seemed to be in a vast expanse of white space, where nothing could be seen. Including his own body, he could not see anything. Deng Shintong, the captain of the Celestial God Team. A special ability user. Ability codename. Praise of Light. His ability is light. He can give people light, but he can also deprive people of light. Under this move, World of Nothingness, everyone except him will lose their sight and can see nothing except a vast expanse of white. Feng Wangyuanren was not far away from him, but he could no longer see his appearance. Deng Shintong raised the corner of his mouth slightly, took a step forward with his right foot, and appeared in front of Feng Wangyuanren the next moment. Then, he punched him hard in the head and blasted over. Although Feng Wangyuanren had lost his vision, his fighting instinct was still there, and his keen intuition of danger let him know that Deng Shintong was approaching. When the fist wind passed by, he quickly blocked it with his arm. However, after all, he was half a beat behind Deng Shintong. When masters fight, the victory or defeat can be decided in a moment. As long as he is half a beat behind, it can be fatal. However, even though Feng Wangyuan couldn't see anything, he could still accurately block Deng Shintong's attacks again and again. This surprised Deng Shintong a little. Feng Wangyuanren, who was endowed with the power of the phoenix, fought back and forth with Deng Shintong. The blood-colored stripes on his body greatly increased his strength and speed. Interesting. Deng Shintong's smile became even stronger. Just like that, what can it do? A white hexagram flashed in his eyes, which was a platinum star shining in the sky. A white holy light enveloped his body, making him look more glorious and majestic, like a god on earth. This is his ability, Holy Body Blessing. Attaching light to the whole body can also make him an unstoppable existence in close combat. The power of light and the power of the phoenix blasted at close range, and Deng Shintong's speed became faster and faster, and his strength became more and more terrifying. At first, Feng Wangyuanren could still react by fighting instinctively and take on Deng Shintong's moves. But slowly, even if he could catch Deng Shintong's attack, his body couldn't react. Even if his body reacted, he was completely crushed in terms of strength. The field was shrouded in white light, and neither the Combat Command Center nor the other people in Eclipse could see what happened here. This is why no one has ever known Deng Shintong's true ability. However, Zhu Zheng has full confidence in Deng Shintong. Because Deng Shintong is the highest masterpiece of the cooperation between Jiangnan District and Deng Group. Whether it is ability, brains, or equipment, Deng Shintong is at the ultimate level. He is an idol created by Jiangnan District, a god that gives confidence to the people of Jiangnan District. So from the end of the world until now, Any mission carried out by the God Squad will be completed perfectly. In a one-on-one situation, Deng Shintong has never lost. No one can see how far the battle in the field will go. Only the amazing explosions kept ringing, and the sound of flesh colliding on the battlefield was like beating a huge drum. Puff! Deng Shintong's fist penetrated Feng Wangyuan Ren's defense, forcefully knocked his arm away, and hit him hard in the chest. Feng Wangyuan Ren's chest was directly sunken, and a clear fist mark appeared. Deng Shintong smiled at the corner of his mouth, grabbed Feng Wangyuan Ren's shoulder with his left hand, and punched the wound with his right hand again with a fist containing infinite power. Feng Wangyuan Ren tried desperately to struggle, but the serious injury on his chest made him unable to exert any strength. Puff! This time, Deng Shintong's fist went straight through Feng Wangyuan's chest and pierced through his back. The bright white battle suit was still so gorgeous. Even if it was stained with blood, it was as gorgeous as plum blossoms blooming on the snow. The smile on Deng Shintong's mouth slowly faded. The leader of the Eclipse group was so vulnerable? He really couldn't believe it. But in front of him, the touch of his body was extremely real, and he could clearly feel the beating of Feng Wangyuan Ren's internal organs. But at this moment, Feng Wangyuan Ren, who was shot through the chest, slowly raised his head and showed him a bloody smile. The next moment, Feng Wangyuan Ren's body was burning. He grabbed Deng Shintong's arm tightly and didn't let Deng Shintong leave. The temperature of the red flame was very high, and even Deng Shintong couldn't help frowning. He was wearing a battle suit made of the most advanced technology in Blizzard City. Even the combat uniforms of the other 5 major investigation teams couldn't compare. But even so, the flames produced by Feng Wangyuan Ren's spontaneous combustion still made him feel a sense of terrible crisis. Chapter 670, 4 Immortality. Deng Shintong felt that something was wrong with Feng Wangyuan Ren's self-igniting flame. Without any hesitation, he struggled to break free from Feng Wangyuan's restraints and retreated far away. In the burning red flame, Feng Wangyuan's mouth was still smiling. Even though his body was already shaky, there was no fear on his face. What the hell is this? Deng Shintong stared at Feng Wangyuan cautiously. He knew that the ability of this Eclipse Moon leader was definitely more than that. But so what? He has encountered more than one tough opponent since he started fighting. In the burning flame, Feng Wangyuan's body slowly fell down. However, the flame burned more violently, and Deng Shintong heard a loud cry. The red flame turned into a fire phoenix with 3 heads. A moment later, the charred body climbed up from the ground again. The black dust dissipated, revealing a strong body. Although the body was naked, it was full of strength. Feng Wangyuan Ren was reborn from the fire, and where was there any scar on his body? Perfect, just like a new life. Deng Shintong's eyes showed a solemn look for the first time. He remembered very clearly that his punch pierced through Feng Wangyuan Ren's chest and almost shattered his heart. It is impossible for a human to survive with that level of injury. But why did this guy appear intact again? Is it because he didn't kill him with one blow? Deng Shintong licked the blood at the corner of his mouth. It was Feng Wangyuan's blood. Then, I'll kill you again. The brilliance of the holy body around Deng Shintong became more blazing, and his speed became extremely fast, as if he was the incarnation of light. Feng Wangyuan, who had just been reborn from the ashes, was approached by Deng Shintong again and punched. Feng Wangyuan smiled at the corner of his mouth and put his hands in front of him to block. Although his vision was deprived, he had a special way to predict Deng Shintong's attack. Just outside the mist, the shrine maiden Mayumi Takeuchi slowly knelt in a ruin. She slowly cut her wrist, and large pieces of bright red blood flowed down and merged into the Takeuchi scroll in front of her. The nourishment of blood made the Takeuchi scroll become more strange. And in the pupils of Feng Wangyuan, which had turned white, there was a mark of reincarnation rotating. The battle between the 2 top aliens was still a collision between flesh and flesh in the end. Feng Wangyuan, who could deprive people of their sight, took the absolute initiative in this battle. Feng Wangyuan relied on special abilities and passively defended. Although he also tried to launch an attack, he couldn't see it, which always slowed his rhythm by half a beat. The red phoenix fire burned on his body, but he couldn't catch Deng Shintong, whose figure was hidden in the light. Puff! This time, Deng Shintong turned his palm into a knife and accurately pierced his heart. This time, I see if you can live or not. Deng Shintong stared at Feng Guangyuan and said word by word. But this time, Feng Guangyuan still climbed up from the ashes intact after spontaneous combustion. Deng Shintong finally confirmed Feng Guangyuan's ability. Immortality. Even if it is hid in the vitals, it can be reborn through the fire. This ability is indeed a bit troublesome. Because no matter how you kill, unless you destroy every cell of the opponent can be resurrected again. Feng Guangyuan was reborn in a perfect form. He said to Deng Shintong with a playful smile, "Sorry. The biggest advantage of me is that I can't die. A person who can't be killed, he can use all kinds of means to kill any opponent." Deng Shintong didn't care. He snorted lightly. Unkillable? Then can't I just kill a few more times? He didn't believe that there were people who couldn't be killed in this world. All carbon-based creatures will die. Either he didn't find the life gate of Feng Guangyuan, or the number of kills was not enough. But it didn't matter. He would keep killing until Feng Guangyuan could no longer be reborn. Deng Shintong stroked his cheek, and his voice became cold. "My teammates are still waiting for the news of my victory. I don't have so much time to waste here with you. So, let's speed up the progress." Great Shumi, illusion. In a trance, Feng Guangyuan's eyes regained their sight for the first time. He actually saw the distant figure of Deng Shintong in the white world. But before he could be happy, Deng Shintong's shadow was infinitely stretched along with the whole world. And the scene around him began to change bizarrely. He saw the bustling city of Kyoto, and the next moment, he returned to the wilderness of Kagoshima. From the past to the present, from the countryside to the city, even the noise of worldly fireworks appeared in his ears. Is this an illusion? Feng Guangyuan. Although he realized what was happening, he couldn't stop it. What his eyes saw and what his ears heard were all false things. Boom. Feng Guangyuan's head exploded like a watermelon. He lost his sight and even his hearing was disturbed. He couldn't deal with Deng Shintong's attack at all. Outside the mist, Takeuchi Mayumi's blood began to fade on the scroll. But she didn't hesitate to cut her wrist again. The weather was too cold, and the wound would coagulate quickly, so she had to cast witchcraft in this way frequently. Shishimanajima Satoru looked at this scene and felt a little distressed. Everyone knew that doing so might cause the whole arm to be disabled. Even the witch with extraordinary abilities was no exception. But Takeuchi Mayumi didn't hesitate at all. In the illusion, Feng Guangyuan stood up again. He seemed to be unaffected. No matter how many times he died, he could be reborn perfectly. And after his rebirth, his condition was not diminished at all. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible to do. Deng Shintong frowned and made his own judgment in his heart. Even if rebirth is an ability, it also consumes superpowers. Even if he looks unharmed, he must have consumed a lot of superpowers. As long as I kill him a few more times, I will definitely make him disappear completely. Deng Shintong was not panicked at all. He didn't believe that there were really people in this world who could not be killed. Compared with others, Feng Guangyuan had no advantages in other aspects except that it was more resistant to killing. Come on, let me see how many more times you can die. Deng Shintong came behind Feng Guangyuan as fast as light, and his right leg was swung up like a long whip, aiming at the back of Feng Guangyuan's head and whipping it hard. But this time, even though Feng Guangyuan was deprived of the ability to see and hear, he still accurately blocked Deng Shintong's attack with his arm. Chapter 675, Great Sumeru Illusion. Using vision to influence hearing, smell, and taste is called synesthesia. Deng Shintong's ability, the Great Shumi Illusion, is to use this to influence the enemy so that the enemy's mind and body are completely in different spaces and then kill their physical bodies. As long as you are hit by this illusion, it will be useless even if you close your eyes. So in common sense, no one can block his attack after being hit by an illusion. However, Feng Guangyuan did it. Although Deng Shintong is obviously better in terms of the strength of the two, Fingguangyuan Ren's blocking still shocked Deng Shintong. He couldn't figure out what this man relied on to do it. Fight to the end. Deng Shintong's fist blasted at Fingguangyuan. This punch was like thousands of fists attacking together. As the most cutting-edge product of Deng's group's biotechnology, his physical strength is comparable to that of a top-level enhanced alien. This is why Zhu Zheng believes that Deng Shintong is the most perfect alien, and in the future he may break through the shackles of his own alien level and reach the Epsilon level. From the perspective of an alien, Deng Shintong is a perfect existence. He is an attacker and defender, and he is impeccable in both alien arts and close combat. There was no light in Fingguangyuan's eyes, but his body instinctively resisted Deng Shintong's attack. The collision between fists made a deafening boom-boom-boom sound. It didn't look like two aliens fighting, but rather like two rhinos wrestling. Fingguangyuan's fighting power is really terrible. Even when he almost lost his five senses, he was still able to fight with Deng Shintong. But in this situation, he suffered a congenital loss after all. In an instant, the two had fought for hundreds of moves. Deng Shintong's fist broke through his defense and pierced his chest again. Fingguangyuan quickly stood in front of Deng Shintong with a posture of rebirth from the ashes. Deng Shintong had a sneer on his lips, and his eyes were full of fighting spirit. He reached out and pulled out an ice-blue pistol from his waist. He rushed over before Fingguangyuan was completely reborn and shot him in the head. The pitch-black bullet is very different from the ordinary origin bullet. There is a white wing on it. It is a bullet specially used by Deng Shintong. This bullet can not only destroy demons, but also contains extremely terrifying genetic toxins. Once it enters the human body, it will quickly spread throughout the body along the blood, quickly corroding a person completely. Even if it is an alien, it will quickly disintegrate if it is shot by this bullet. After Deng Shintong was shot, his body quickly turned black and died again. Then continued to be reborn. Deng Shintong is not an impatient person. He has encountered many difficult opponents. But it is the first time he has seen an alien like Fingguangyuan who can't be killed no matter what, and will be reborn in a perfect posture immediately after being killed. In terms of strength, he can beat Fingguangyuan. However, here, how can he kill Fingguangyuan? Is it true that he can't be killed? No, there must be a way. But if I continue to waste time with him here, the result may not be what I want most. It's better to try to seal him. Deng Shintong figured it out. With his strength, it is not a problem to kill Fingguangyuan many times, so there is naturally a way to subdue him. Then take him back to the laboratory of the region and hand him over to the scientific research department to slowly analyze him. There is always a way to deal with him. Thinking of this, Deng Shintong began to change his combat strategy. He took advantage of the process of Fingguangyuan's resurrection to take out a silver rope from the backpack he carried with him and then quickly tied him up. During the resurrection process, Fingguangyuan had no power to resist. When he was resurrected, his body was already firmly tied up by Deng Shintong. Come back to Blizzard City with me, you miscellaneous cultivator. Deng Shintong pulled Fingguangyuan with one hand and said coldly. But at this time, Fingguangyuan, who was tied up tightly, suddenly laughed. At first, the laughter was not loud, but soon the laughter became more and more rampant. What are you laughing at? Deng Shintong asked with a frown. Fingguangyuan looked at Deng Shintong and smiled brightly, but his eyes were still cold. Of course I have to laugh to be able to kill the captain of the famous Tianjin team. This time he didn't speak Japanese, but poor Chinese. But this joking remark made Deng Shintong furious. He punched Fingguangyuan's forehead hard, causing blood to splatter. But Fingguangyuan didn't care. He was still laughing. Without any signs, he exploded. In front of Deng Shintong, he exploded all over the sky, and large pieces of blood rain fell with a whoosh. Of course, splashing all over Deng Shintong. Deng Shintong is a very clean person, which can be seen from his love of dyeing white hair and wearing silver-white clothes. But Fingguangyuan's self-explosion made him covered in sticky blood, which made Deng Shintong very angry. However, before Deng Shintong could clean the blood, he suddenly felt all over his body. Up and down, It seemed as if there was a fire burning. Deng Shintong was in great pain. He looked down and found that it was not an illusion, but his body really began to burn. The blood of Feng Guangyuan flowed along his clothes onto his body, and the silver-white combat uniform was also stained by blood and was unbearable to look at. The blood flowing with colorful colors did not solidify and turn black after leaving the human body, but instead burst out with a more dazzling brilliance. Then it was burning. The surging flames soared into the sky, turning Deng Shintong into a fireman. Deng Shintong let out a painful wail, and he tried his best to activate Sacred Body Blessing to resist the burning of the flames. But the temperature of the flames was too terrible, and he was caught off guard, and it was too difficult to resist. At this time, Feng Guangyuan climbed up again from the broken flesh and blood. He stared coldly at Deng Shintong, who was burning in the flames, and grinned. This time, it's your turn to be reborn from the fire. The power of the phoenix is not something that everyone can bear. He had to bear such power in thousands of reincarnations of death. Time and again, he was burned by the blood in his body, turned to ashes, and revived again because of the power of immortality. I don't know how many times he experienced this kind of pain before he learned how to control this power. The blood of the phoenix is the most terrifying fire poison in the world. Die! Feng Guangyuan roared and rushed towards Deng Shintong, who was burning in flames with his naked body. Deng Shintong struggled to resist the burning of the phoenix fire. At this time, he couldn't even open his eyes. But at this moment of life and death crisis, something suddenly came to his mind. Obviously, with his strength, he can definitely defeat Feng Guangyuan. Even if he can't kill him, as long as he is fully prepared, it will be easy to seal Feng Guangyuan. But why does it feel like the other party seems to know everything about him, and even this battle is a trap? Chapter 676 Enlightenment. Deng Shintong vaguely felt that something was wrong. I can't possibly lose. How could I lose? With my ability, how can he fight me with his little tricks? It must be because... While Deng Shintong was struggling, the Phoenix Court had already rushed over. The power of the Phoenix was burning around him, and the power of the flame interacted with the flame on Deng Shintong's body, making Deng Shintong even more painful. Ha ha ha. Come on, Captain of the God Squad. Let's see who can hold out to the end. But I kindly remind you that I can't be killed. This time, it was the Phoenix Court who came to torture Deng Shintong. Deng Shintong struggled to use the power of the holy body to fight against the burning of the Phoenix fire. At the same time, he had to free up his hands to deal with the Phoenix Court. The battlefield was filled with flames and roars. Even though he was burned by the Phoenix fire, Deng Shintong was still Deng Shintong after all. When he fought back with all his strength, the Phoenix Court could not resist. But the Phoenix Court's fighting style was very clear, that is, to fight with you to the death. Before Deng Shintong found a way to restrain the immortality ability of the Phoenix Courtyard, if they continued to fight like this, the Phoenix Courtyard would sooner or later drag Deng Shintong to death. However, Deng Shintong no longer had the time and energy to deal with it. The Phoenix blood all over his body, the burning high temperature made him almost want to die immediately. But he knew that he couldn't just give up. He fought hard and killed the Phoenix Courtyard 3 times. But no matter how hard he killed that guy, he would get up from the flames again, and then continue to fight Deng Shintong with a grin. Despair, incomparable despair enveloped Deng Shintong. Even if his energy was strong, he couldn't fight endlessly. Am I really going to fall here? The blood-red flames enveloped Deng Shintong, and the silver holy light on his body became weaker and weaker. At this time, he had to admit one thing. He couldn't continue to fight. But on the edge of life and death, there was one thing he really figured out. That is, why he lost in this battle. It's not that he's not strong enough, but because... Puff! Feng Guangyuan hit Deng Shintong's chest with a knee strike. Although he was protected by his battle suit, he still flew backwards dozens of meters and fell directly into the ruins. At this time, blood gushed out of his mouth, and his eyelids could hardly lift up. In the corner of his eye, he saw Feng Guangyuan naked, grinning like a devil and walking towards him. I know. I finally know what's going on. It turns out that from the beginning, I was their target. Blood foamed in Deng Shintong's mouth, and he didn't even have the strength to stand up. But at least I have to bring the information back. He thought weakly. Feng Guangyuan walked in front of him and looked down at him with the attitude of a winner. Ding, ding. Deng Shintong closed his eyes, and a faint light flickered in his long silver hair. Just when Feng Guangyuan was about to reach out and take off his head, Deng Shintong's head exploded with a boom. An extremely terrifying force swept over, directly sweeping away the fog within a radius of a kilometer. The thick fog rolled back and rolled out, and its power was so strong that the phoenix court at the center of the explosion was killed again. The silver storm broke out from the center of Jiangning Square, like a silver ball that quickly covered the sky, dazzling. However, this dazzling and gorgeous light made the combat command center of Blizzard City become dead silent. They knew what this explosion meant. Every captain-level alien had such a small high-energy bomb placed on his head. It was jointly developed by the Deng Group and the Blizzard City Research Center, and its power was very huge. However, its existence was not to kill the enemy, but to self-destruct. The strength of the captain-level aliens was too strong, so when they died, it was necessary to ensure that their origin would not be swallowed by the enemy. Therefore, the appearance of the huge silver-white light ball meant that a captain-level alien had fallen. The only captain-level alien who appeared there was Deng Shintong. In other words, Deng Shintong was dead. The combat command center was completely silent, and the staff even forgot about their work. Several girls even fainted on the spot because they couldn't accept the fact. Deng Shintong's death marked the complete failure of Blizzard City in the battle against Eclipse Moon. Lan Xincheng widened his eyes, his slender body began to tremble, and his eyes were full of dullness. Tu Yunlia's face was stern under his collar, his eyes were extremely sharp and full of anger. As for Bailey Chongqing, he opened his mouth wide, not knowing what to say. They couldn't imagine that the Jiangnan district would fail in this battle. In addition to being shocked, these people all secretly cast their eyes on the rostrum. The old man on the table. Zhu Zheng supported the table with both hands, his body trembling, and his strong shoulders twitching. Although he lowered his head, everyone knew that his expression must be very terrifying at this time. That's right, he didn't want his subordinates to see his hideous appearance. His face was distorted to the point of being scary, his eyes were full of bloodshot, and even because he bit his teeth too hard, blood oozed from the corners of his mouth. The joints of his hands turned white because of excessive force, and his fingertips were cracking on the table, and his nails were about to turn over. Zhu Zheng's heart was on the verge of collapse at this time. One of his most elite teams actually died in battle against a Ronin organization. More than half of the people below the captain died in battle, and the other side was still rampant on this land. This incident will become the biggest stain in his military career, and it will be difficult to wash it clean. Marshal Zhu. Lan Xincheng looked at Zhu Zheng with some concern. He knew very well how much of a blow this incident had dealt to Zhu Zheng. Zhu Zheng lowered his head and said word by word, immediately order all troops to withdraw. Immediately withdraw. When he spoke, his voice seemed to be squeezed out from the crack of the door, and his breathing was very heavy. If he was not in front of so many people, he would have probably gone crazy at this time. But he couldn't do that yet, because the battle was not over yet. He had to preserve his living strength. No matter how painful a failure was as Zhu Shuai, he couldn't be depressed. Tu Yunlai said, received. He immediately ordered the 2 helicopters that were parked there to return immediately. When Tu Yunlai finished giving the order, Zhu Zheng could no longer control his anger. He raised his neck and punched hard on the command desk. Prepare the god of death of love. Flatten the entire Jiangning city for me, and let those guys be completely buried. Everyone was shocked. The god of death of love, their ultimate weapon. Is it time to use it? When the Eclipse Moon just appeared, someone mentioned using the god of death of love to directly wipe them out. But this proposal was rejected by Zhu Zheng. However, now Zhu Zheng, who was extremely angry, still chose this approach. Because he also realized that in the current Jiangnan region, If even the Heavenly God Squad could not eliminate Eclipse Moon, the only way to minimize the losses was to use the Death God of Love. Otherwise, even if he sent more troops to encircle and suppress them, he would have to pay an extremely heavy price. Chapter 677 Tragic. At the workbench, after receiving Zhu Zheng's order, someone immediately began to open the launch chamber where the God of Death of Love was placed. Everyone in the command center was terrified, although they had expected such a day to come. This was the first time in the history of the country that such a weapon was used. This also officially marked that the thermal weapons before the end of the world were gradually losing their influence on the world. Instead, the top alien's control ability was replaced. And the 4 words Erosion Moon also cast a shadow over everyone's heart. In the center of Jiangning Square, Fengguangyuan walked out of the thick fog naked. He looked a little weak. Although he could be resurrected continuously, each resurrection required a great consumption. Immortality is not true immortality, but no one knows where his limit is. Deng Shintong's body could no longer be found on the ground. The high-energy bomb had blown Deng Shintong's body to pieces, and a terrifying deep pit appeared on the ground. In order to ensure that the captain-level character's origin could be blown to pieces, the equivalent of this bomb was also very terrifying. By the way, it became a means of mutual destruction. I'm the winner in the end, bastard. He won too hard. If he had known Deng Shintong's ability in advance and had been prepared, he would have died at Deng Shintong's hands this time. The captains of the investigation teams in Blizzard City are all monsters. Deng Shintong took a deep breath, and his body radiated red-hot flames, helping him resist the extremely cold temperature. In the distance, Mayumi Takeuchi, who had been kneeling on the ground for divination, suddenly covered her mouth and coughed violently. Ms. Takeuchi. 40 Minoba Satoru hurriedly supported her body. I saw a few streams of bright red blood flowing out from her fingers, and Mayumi Takeuchi's face became paler and paler. At this time, even her skin began to become somewhat transparent, just like a patient who had lost too much blood. The whole arm became blue and purple due to continuous bleeding and the invasion of cold poison, and it was already useless. Blood kept flowing out of Mayumi Takeuchi's mouth. Shishiwacheng was suddenly thought of something. You must have overdrawn your blood because of helping the captain fight, right? Takeuchi Mayumi struggled to let go of her hand and said to Shishiwacheng, Quick, tell everyone to leave here immediately. Leave immediately. There is a very big danger coming. Shishiwacheng saw Takeuchi Mayumi's anxious expression and immediately understood something. He closed his eyes and began to contact all the living members of Eclipse Moon. Let them gather quickly and leave here. Fengguangyuan Jin rushed over as soon as possible. He casually found a set of clothes from the ruins and put them on. Although it could not keep out the cold, it barely covered his naked body. After listening to Shishiwacheng's words, he said without hesitation, It seems that the other party is going to use weapons of mass destruction to clean the ground. Leave here immediately. The Eclipse Moon members who received the signal from Shishiwacheng immediately began to rush back. When everyone gathered together, they found that they had lost 5 people in this battle, which was tragic. Such a result was unexpected by everyone. Because in the past, as long as they acted according to Mayumi Takeuchi's prediction, no one had ever died. But this time, they lost nearly half of their team members. Everyone was a little confused, but now Mayumi Takeuchi had fainted, and they had no way to ask. They could only follow her prediction and leave this ghost place first. Shishimanobu Satoru went to find the car, and then all the team members got on the car and left Jiangning Square without stopping for a moment. When they left, they heard the sound of helicopter wings flapping in the distance. Fengguangyuan couldn't help but look up at the sky. He had a hunch that he would meet these guys again soon. What a tragic battle. So many people died. We can't continue to fight. Team leader, what should we do now? Should we continue to move forward? Jinguji's Seiichiro looked at Fengguangyuan and asked. Fengguangyuan put one arm on the car window, and his eyes fell on Mayumi Takeuchi. For this battle, she overdrew too much strength, and even her arm was disabled. It is necessary to find a healing alien to heal her injuries. Mayumi Takeuchi is the core of Eclipse Moon, and she must not be lost. No, we also need to rest for a while. But this time, we are the winners. Although Feng Guangyuan looked a little haggard at this time, his eyes were still full of fanatic light. The blow suffered by Blizzard City this time is big enough. They don't have any troops to use to deal with us. And next time, I will give them a bigger surprise. Jinguji Seiichiro couldn't help but look at him sideways, with the same disgust in his eyes. Oh, what do you want to do now? We don't have any helpers. Yes, he said mysteriously. Laughing, the laughter grew louder and louder in the snowy field, and was blown away by the wind. The armed helicopter took off with a rumble, and the fan blades rolled up snowflakes all over the sky. Zhang Yi realized that they were going to evacuate, and he couldn't help but frowned. This was very abnormal. Everyone saw the explosion just now, and even the helicopter in the distance was shaking. And soon they would retreat. This didn't look like a victory. Could it be that Deng Shintong was defeated? Zhang Yi's scalp was a little numb. He couldn't imagine that the Jiangnan district would lose to Eclipse twice. And this time, it was under the circumstances of sending out the ace troops. He could even predict how furious and crazy Zhu Zheng would be. But what about Deng Shintong? Is he dead? Zhang Yi frowned. All this was his guess, but everything that happened in front of him gave him a bad feeling. If a person like Deng Shintong really died so easily, it would feel too unreal. Zhang Yi looked at the medical staff inside the helicopter and immediately gave up the idea of asking them. These people are just grassroots staff and should not be aware of the situation at the headquarters. Several other people also noticed this subtle atmosphere. If they had won, they would not have left in such a hurry. But they dared not even think about failure. No one could afford such a price. When Liang Yu saw that Zhang Yi looked wrong, she couldn't help but come over and whispered, "What's wrong?" Zhang Yi shook his head. "Nothing. Let's wait quietly to return to the city. The situation is unclear, so it's best not to speculate or discuss it." Liang Yu didn't say anything more when she saw this. She held the small form of Huahua on her legs and lowered her head to caress it. But Huahua didn't seem to like her very much. After rubbing it under her palm for a few times, it raised its tail and jumped to the ground and climbed up along Zhang Yi's trouser legs. Cats are creatures that like warmth, so they prefer the body temperature of men. When it came to Zhang Yi's legs, it found a comfortable position, scratched its trouser legs, and then curled itself up steadily and continued to sleep. Chapter 678 Death of Love. After the two armed helicopters left the area of Jiangning City, Zhu Zheng stared at the screen and pressed the launch button of the God of Love with a fierce look. From a certain underground launch chamber, a huge missile slowly emerged, and then the blue-purple flames steamed, pushing it to the sky. This move immediately attracted the attention of major regional forces around the world. Someone launched the God of Love. My God, has this moment come? It has been confirmed that this God of Love came from Huaxiu country, Jiangnan region. Note: Huaxiu, the mother of Fuxi and Niwa, is called the ancestor. For reasons that everyone understands, Huaxiu country will be used to refer to the native land in the future. Investigate what happened there immediately. When the God of Love took off, the whole world got the news, which also meant that this incident could not be concealed. 2 minutes later, a huge mushroom cloud rose in the center of Jiangning City. The terrifying temperature destroyed everything there, and the huge electromagnetic shockwave also caused several surrounding cities to temporarily fall into a state of communication and power stagnation. Zhu Zheng's body fell heavily on the chair, and his mood was extremely heavy. In the end, the Death of Love was used just because of a team of aliens. Even if they won, it was not glorious. But before he could breathe a sigh of relief, the staff over there immediately reported, "Commander-in-Chief, through our satellite monitoring, we found the trace of Eclipse Moon. They escaped." Zhu Zheng's pupils shrank suddenly. He stood up in disbelief and asked, "Escaped? This is impossible. No matter how fast they escape, they can't be faster than the explosion of the Death of Love." The staff member looked gloomy and showed the information map to Zhu Zheng. According to our satellite intelligence, they actually left the center of the explosion 10 minutes ago. Although the trace of Eclipse Moon could not be observed on the satellite map due to the existence of the shielding device. But it is still possible to confirm their location. It's like a hole appeared on a map. Very obvious. Including Zhu Zheng. Everyone felt their scalps tingling. Even the death of love is useless to them? How could it be such a coincidence? More than 10 minutes ago, they were still in the area of the center of Jiangning. How could they escape so quickly? It was as if they knew in advance that they would use the god of death of love. Zhu Zheng sat in a chair in a daze, as if half of his soul had been taken away. This time he was completely ruined. And this action will also reduce the prestige of the Jiangnan region and his personal prestige to an extremely low level. It is not an exaggeration to describe it as embarrassing. Sun Lushuan looked at Zhu Zheng. He wanted to say something, but when he saw that Zhu Zheng's condition was not right, he stopped talking. When he glanced sideways, he and the Minister of Operations Tu Yunlai looked at each other. There was a tacit feeling in the eyes of the two. This made the expressions of the two people become much more solemn, because they saw what the true background of Eclipse Moon was. Predicting the future. This is the ability that the other party has. Then, from beginning to end, all the puzzles have been solved. Why did the troops of the Jiangnan region, in the advantageous state of local operations, be in a passive state in many battles? No matter how to plan, it will be seen through by the other party and even at a disadvantage in personnel transfer. It's not that the God team can't beat Eclipse's people. It's that Eclipse can find the perfect means of response every time, making their aliens very comfortable. Even the fact that Jiangnan district would use the god of death of love, they predicted it in advance and escaped from danger. This ability makes people feel deeply desperate. Who can defeat an enemy who can see through the future? But soon, Tu Yunlai discovered the blind spot of the matter. Eclipse's prophet cannot perfectly predict the future, because 5 of their people were also killed. One was the female ninja Naru's Hanakyo, who was killed instantly by Deng Shindong. And the other 4 people were... Tu Yunlai raised his head suddenly, with a strange light in his eyes. He seemed to have found the best way to deal with Eclipse. That's right, it was Zhang Yi. From the beginning, no one paid attention to him, a mere alien from the outer city. Later, he killed 4 members of Eclipse by himself, although 2 of them were suspected of picking up leaks. But at that time, Eclipse's second-in-command Jinguji Seiichiro was nearby. Zhang Yi scared off Jinguji head-on, which proved that his strength was definitely not as simple as it seemed. At least he must be at the vice-captain level, or even captain level. Tu Yunlia's eyes became sharper. He felt that the headquarters needed to have a good chat with Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi would be the key to destroying Eclipse Moon. At this time, Lan Xincheng was not idle either. Zhu Zheng was hit hard and was unable to arrange other matters. As Zhu Zheng's secretary, Lan Xincheng had to sort out the corners of this mess for him. He pushed his gold-rimmed glasses with his palm, then stood in the center of the command center with his hands behind his back and his chest and head held high. Then he said loudly, "Regarding this battle, no one present today shall disclose a single word to the outside world. Once I find anyone leaking it, they will be deprived of their status as residents of Blizzard City and expelled from the country." The staff members were terrified when they heard the news. Some people thought to themselves, are they going to keep their mouths shut? But can such a huge defeat really be kept secret from everyone? Tu Yunlai glanced at Lan Xincheng and didn't say much. It was not his business to manage internal affairs, and Lan Xincheng could do whatever he wanted. A staff member asked, but the defeat in this battle has such a huge impact that even if we don't say it, many people still know about it. For example, the frontline combatants. Lan Xincheng said coldly, they will also receive a notice and are not allowed to disclose any information to the outside world. From today on, no one in the entire Blizzard City is allowed to discuss this incident privately. In this battle, we annihilated half of the Eclipse Moon members and achieved brilliant results. Let the news station report this immediately and inform the whole city. Everyone understood that Lan Xincheng was going to create an information cocoon to prevent most people in the city from knowing the truth about the defeat in the battle. Because in the end times, the most feared thing is that people's hearts are unstable, which leads to internal turmoil. Bailey Chongqing interrupted. Other aspects are easy to say, but what about the Deng family? The death of Deng Shintong was a huge blow to the Deng family. You know, Deng Shintong is the successor that the Deng family has high hopes for, and there are not many descendants of the Deng family, and even Deng Yuanhua himself has no offspring. At that time, can they still shut up the Deng family? Lan Xincheng also fell silent, his brows twisted into a knot, and finally said with difficulty, I have no choice but to talk to the Deng family. I hope they can consider the overall situation. Unless Zhu Zheng speaks up, Lan Xincheng, as the secretary, may not be given face. Chapter 679 Maintaining the Situation. The failure of the second campaign to suppress Eclipse Moon caused chaos among the top leaders of Blizzard City. Zhu Zheng's mentality exploded at this time, and the others had to come out to patch things up at this time. Secretary Lan Xincheng took over the task of blocking the news. Naturally, the people below acted according to the instructions. The first thing that morning, the morning news of Jiangnan TV broadcast the news that the region had won a great victory in the battle against the Japanese Ronin. In the early morning of this day, our Jiangnan region's alien troops launched a special military operation against the Ronin organization, Erosion Moon from Japan. This operation was commanded by the region's supreme commander Zhu Zheng and the director of operations Tu Yunlai, and the captain of the Black Robe investigation team Bailey Chongqing participated in the decision-making. The God Squad and many aliens from the outer city participated. After a night of hard work, half of the members of Eclipse Moon were annihilated, and brilliant results were achieved. In Blizzard City, there is a lack of entertainment. After getting up every morning, I will watch today's morning news. At this time, the people of Blizzard City were overjoyed to see that the region had won another great victory, and their faces showed joy. Although they still had to work for more than 12 hours today, they all felt full of energy. On the Deng family side, Deng Yuanhua got the news of Deng Shintong's death in the first place. Everyone was terrified, fearing that this important figure in Blizzard City would be furious. Even Lan Xincheng called Deng Yuanhua in person, fearing that he would make a big deal out of this matter. It was not Deng Yuanhua himself who answered the phone, but his housekeeper Lianqing. Mr. Deng is not convenient to answer the phone now. He told me that if someone from the headquarters comes to ask, let me convey his meaning. The Deng family will put the overall situation first and support the decision of the top management. After Lan Xincheng got this answer, his heart was finally put down. Don't look at Deng Yuanhua's identity on the surface as just a businessman. But in fact, the power and network of the Deng family are very large. Even in today's Blizzard City, many high-level figures have intersections with the Deng family. Moreover, the development of Blizzard City also relies on the technical support provided by Deng Group. Mr. Deng is very righteous. I would like to express my gratitude to him on behalf of Blizzard City. I will convey your meaning to him. The call ended quickly. Lianqing put down the retro golden telephone and turned to walk towards the inner room. Deng Yuanhua's room is antique, and the furniture is mainly red sandalwood and wangwali, which are the styles of the last century. This is quite rare in the middle of the 21st century. At this time, he was wearing a fox fur cloak, standing in front of the huge French window, quietly watching the falling snow outside the window. Lianqing knocked on the door and walked in, respectfully lowering his hands, and said, Mr. Deng, I have responded to the people at the headquarters according to your instructions. Deng Yuanhua just nodded slowly. Seeing this, Lianqing raised his head and thought about it again and again. He asked in confusion, there are many strange things in this operation. The failure was too complete, and with the strength of the young master, even if he was defeated, he would not die in battle. Are you too gentle to them? Such a result was unacceptable to Deng Yuanhua and Lianqing. The Tianqian team had never lost a battle, and their members were all top-notch players. How could they die at the hands of a group of Ronin? Lianqing couldn't help but have a conspiracy theory in his heart. Could it be that someone deliberately targeted and killed Deng Shintong? After all, there are undercurrents in Blizzard City now. Deng Shintong, as the designated successor of the Deng family, is top-notch in both ability and popularity. Almost everyone understands that Deng Shintong is a strong contender for the next commander of Blizzard City, who is highly expected by the Deng family. Deng Yuanbo narrowed his eyes, and his expression was hidden in the dim morning light, so his expression could not be seen clearly. A vicissitudes of life came from his throat. No matter what, the Jiangnan region cannot be in chaos. We and the Jiangnan region will rise and fall together. If there is chaos in Blizzard City, it will be difficult for the Deng family to remain unscathed. I will carefully investigate the matter of the magical power. But now, we have to help the region stabilize. Lianqing heard this and bowed his head and said, I am short-sighted. I will follow your teachings, sir. No matter how sad he was, Deng Yuanbo, as the head of the Deng family, needed to be responsible for the entire family. It is undoubtedly stupid to tear his face with the regional headquarters now. However, this matter will never end. Don't let me find out who did this. Otherwise, even Zhu Zheng, you can't bear the consequences. Deng Yuanbo's gloomy eyes burst into a terrifying light. Zhu Zheng was able to sit in the position of commander of the Jiangnan region in the end times. Although it was related to his status in the army, it was also inseparable from the support of other forces. After all, in Blizzard City, there are many large families in Jiangnan. People from these families are spread all over Blizzard City. If one day, Zhu Jingde is not worthy of the position, he will be pulled down by them. In the end times, it is absolutely a huge disaster for people without abilities to hold high positions. The explosion of the death of love made Zhang Yi and others on the helicopter realize that Deng Shintong and his team had failed. If they were not forced to no other way, Blizzard City would never use this ultimate weapon. I didn't expect them to be so strong. Mo Zhongning's eyes were a little confused. We are all aliens. Why is the gap so big? He was an alien who dominated a city, but he was chopped down by Eclipse Moon. This feeling was too much of a blow to him. Li Weihai sighed. This group of aliens is not ordinary aliens. It is said that they killed and plundered everywhere in Kanto, Japan, and they are the most ferocious robber gang in Kanto. Who can survive in that environment until now is not a tough guy. Li Weihai said here, took a deep breath, raised his head, and looked at the lingering radiation outside the window. But now, everything is over. No matter how powerful the alien is, it is impossible to survive in front of such a weapon. Almost everyone agreed with this statement. Only Zhang Yi frowned and did not comment. Liang Yu asked, why do you still look worried? The headquarters has deployed the god of love, let alone the people of Eclipse. Even Yuan Kongya, who is at the level of Epsilon, can't survive, right? Zhang Yi said, I have a feeling that makes me very uncomfortable. I always feel that they won't die so easily. This feeling comes from the information Zhang Yi collected about the Eclipse group. They seem to have a kind of prophetic ability and can always predict the battle situation most accurately. Could it be that they even anticipated the appearance of the God of Love? Chapter 6 80 points card. 2 armed helicopters flew back to Blizzard City. When they arrived above Blizzard City, Zhang Yi stared out the window cautiously. Sure enough, the city was under martial law today, and soldiers with live ammunition were everywhere. This confirmed the failure of the Tianxin team's operation. Zhang Yi couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Although he didn't have much contact with Deng Shintong, Zhang Yi still admired that guy's character. Zhang Yi still owed him a box of origin bombs. The plane landed at the indoor airport, and the huge dome opened, allowing them to fly into it, and then slowly closed. The door of the helicopter was opened, and Zhang Yi took Liang Yu and Hua to go out first. After all, the other people inside were either patients or nurses, and someone should transfer them to the ward later. Zhang Yi didn't follow them, and it would be better to find Bailey Chongqing to inquire about the situation first. However, after the door was opened, Zhang Yi saw more than a dozen Yanyan team members standing outside. The 3 people in the lead, judging by the badges on their shoulders, should be Yanyan officers. After seeing Zhang Yi, a major officer came forward and respectfully saluted Zhang Yi. Welcome to your triumphant return, Mr. Zhang Yi. Thank you for your outstanding achievements in this battle. You killed 4 members of the Eclipse Moon with your own strength and restored the dignity of our Jiangnan region. No, the Huashu country. The major's tone was full of awe and excitement. As a senior member of Yenyun, he certainly knew what happened in Jiangning Square. Almost all members of the Tianxin team died in the battle, and only Deng Shintong killed a member of the Eclipse Moon. And Zhang Yi killed 4 Eclipse Moons. If not, the face of the Jiangnan region would be completely lost in this battle. And the Huashu country would also be ridiculed by people in other countries and regions. At the very least, Zhang Yi's move made the face of the region and the country not so ugly. As a soldier, Major Yenyun certainly knew how difficult it was for Zhang Yi to complete this task. This feat is comparable to driving a tank deep into the enemy's territory alone, 1v12, and finally completing a 1-on-8 victory. Of course, they deserve their admiration. When these words came out, everyone on the helicopter was stunned. Especially Mo Zhongning, Li Weihai, and Yuan Hao, who had questioned Zhang Yi at the beginning, opened their mouths in surprise and couldn't close them. Did I just hear it? Mo Zhongning stared blankly at Yuan Hao on the bed. They seemed to say that Zhang Yi killed 4 Eclipse Moons alone? Hey, this must be a problem with my ears. Yuan Hao's expression was also a little dull. I seem to also hear it. Chun Xiaoxiao, who was not far away, said sarcastically, is it so difficult to admit that others are strong? Zhang Yi actually killed 4 Eclipse Moons. 2 of them died in front of us. How could this be? Mo Zhongning was full of astonishment. He looked at Zhang Yi in front of the helicopter cabin door, and his little head was full of doubts. We are all aliens from the outer city. Why are we treated as vegetables by the Eclipse Moon, but you are so brave? Could this be the disparity of the world? Major Yenyun glanced to the side, and immediately a soldier came over with a plate covered with red silk in his hand. On it were some black cards, which looked like metal and synthetic materials. Major Yenyun took out a black card and handed it to Zhang Yi. This is the points card you got for this operation. With this card, you can spend money in Blizzard City and exchange various materials at the headquarters. Major Yenyun suddenly laughed and said, you got a total of 420 million points for this operation. Zhang Yi couldn't help but whistled. It sounds like a lot, but I don't know much about the concept of this thing. How to measure its value? Major Yenyun thought for a while and explained, the value of points is similar to the currency before the end of the world. It's just that the price level is much higher than before the end of the world. So, strictly speaking, the purchasing power of points is stronger than the money before the end of the world. Zhang Yi's eyes lit up immediately. He took the points card and then approached Major Yenyun and put his arm around his shoulders. With this thing, can you buy anything? Major Yenyun whispered to him, some materials require permission to buy. For example, weapons and equipment made with cutting-edge technology. However, judging from your achievements, most of the materials will be open to you. Zhang Yi smiled and nodded with satisfaction. He didn't really need other things, and what attracted him to Blizzard City were the weapons and equipment made with advanced technology. For example, the black battle suit he was wearing now. With it, even without using his superpowers, he could clearly feel that his body's strength and reaction speed had improved a lot. Then where can I exchange weapons and equipment? Is it the place where I received the weapons before? Zhang Yi asked. Major Yenyun nodded. Yes, that's right. Your scorecard is of high level, and you can open the corresponding material warehouse. Okay, thank you. Zhang Yi smiled with satisfaction. Major Yenyun said, no, I should thank you. This is not a polite remark. Logically speaking, fighting against foreign enemies should be the duty of soldiers in these regions. Zhang Yi is an ordinary citizen and should not be on the front line. Now, he has to rely on others to save his little dignity, which is really shameful. At this time, the other people on the helicopter were a little restless. They also put in a lot of effort in this operation and almost died. Zhang Yi can get so many points, what about them? Mo Zhongning shouted. Sir, where are our points cards? Major Yenyun glanced at Mo Zhongning and gestured to the subordinate next to him. The subordinate walked over and distributed the points cards one by one. Although except Zhang Yi, the others did not achieve much results. But after all, they were fighting for the Jiangnan region, so the Yanyan guards had a good attitude towards them. It's just that the soldiers who admire the strong obviously respect Zhang Yi more. After Mo Zhongning got the points card, he couldn't help but ask, "How many points are in our cards?" The Yanyan guard said calmly, "Except for Mr. Zhang Yi, everyone else got 20 million points. The aliens who died in the battle will get an additional 50 million points as compensation. The points will be given to their families or inherited by the people in their faction." Mo Zhongning and others couldn't help but sigh in their hearts when they heard that they only had 20 million points, while Zhang Yi had 420 million points. It's really annoying to compare yourself with others. They almost died to get such a small number of points. Although it's not a small amount, looking at Zhang Yi, his whole body is intact, and he got the most. It's really enviable. However, it's just envy. After confirming that Zhang Yi killed 4 Eclipse Moons, they were also full of awe for Zhang Yi. Only fools would envy those who are much stronger than themselves. This long episode ends here. Thanks for staying tuned. Really appreciate your support for this channel. We'll post new ones soon. Please subscribe if not already. Thanks.